first off, we've got some fighters lined up right now, ready to get on that stage. You've been in this position before. Thankfully, I have not. But what's going through the minds of the fighters as they're about to get this part of Fight Week behind them?
Well, they can't wait to get that first sip of water or whatever concoction, drink, shake.
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that. In some respect, though, he hadn't competed since December of last year, so I think some of this is rooted in activity. And, you know, you're going to have to pass these challenges stylistically as champion or title challenger. But I give a lot of respect to Shavkat Rakhmonov. In some respect, you know, competing for the fan base, wanting to get back in there. And I just have to say the intensity of this man in our fighter meeting was absolutely insane. You know, there was a fighter meeting prior in which he gave me chocolates. No chocolates this time around. I was just thankful that I didn't ask a stupid question. Maybe I actually did, but Shavkat is completely effing locked in, and you know, fan interest in that fight is completely off the charts. I mean, that fight in itself is like a Super Bowl for me as a sports fan, and it's tomorrow night.
Hour to make another attempt to try to make weight for the event. It used to be you'd have 2 hours and then 1 hour, but they've now shortened that window. So typically, if everybody's going to make weight, it's going to happen within 1 hour of the start of weigh-ins, which is in just a couple minutes time.
Which is interesting because in Edmonton, when I fought in the
well, he's 8-0 in the UFC, right? And I do believe in terms of strength of schedule, slight lean towards Ian Machado Garry on paper in terms of what he's done compared to Shavkat Rakhmonov. But it does come back in some parts, so you're going to have to beat these guys at some point in time, right? Does Joaquin Buckley, Hellcat, sound like a picnic to you right now? Like, he can kill a man with his right hand, you know? So all of these guys are difficult, and, you know, familiarity in this case has not breeded contempt. I can't wait to see these guys exchange, and, you know, hopefully we get sort of a result that makes that fight against Bilal Muhammad something that the fan base is really excited about.
And that's why, of course, that we all made weight in such little time in Edmonton. Not to say that they might not break the record here today. Who knows?
Yeah, it'd be great to see, but, you know, for the show, we want to see somebody miss weight today. I'm not just kidding. I don't want to see anybody miss weight. They suffer enough to make it. Hopefully it all goes well. But, you know, sometimes the weigh-in can really play a factor into the performance of a guy, right? If he had a bad weight cut or if he ate the wrong thing, you know, the whole story about Khabib having that tiramisu. You know what to expect during fight week and what happens. Or even post weigh-in. Sometimes the guys, they weigh in, everything goes well. And then between the weigh-in and the fight, some hijinks happens and the fights don't happen.
For the main event, they have to weigh 125 pounds or less. You fight at bantamweight, 135 pounds. When was the last time you stepped on a scale at 125 pounds?
I must have been 13.
13, okay, all right. So I think I have you beat, because I think I was still hitting 125 pounds like into my early 20s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lean and mean over here, Aaron
exactly.
Bronstetter. You know what I mean?
Lean, mean machine right here, Aaron Bronstetter. But we're going to be going over to John Anik momentarily as they start the weigh-ins for this event. A lot of great fighters on this card. We've got the main event, as mentioned, flyweight championship of the world, Alexandre Pantoja against a newcomer, Kai Asakura.
Yeah, this is a pretty incredible turn of events. Like, he's never fought in the UFC before. He's been a champion in another league in Japan. He's very popular, very famous. And his first fight in the UFC is getting a title shot. This is like unheard of.
Yeah, but you've seen a lot of cards in Japan, and you see the fanfare and the pageantry that goes into these cards and how big they feel.
Yeah.
Do you think that really helps prepare him for the big stage he's going to be on tomorrow night here in America?
Yeah, I really do think it's going to help, because even I was listening to his press conference media day, and he was talking about how he's the main event. He's been the main event many times in Japan, and because he's so popular, he felt like there's no difference between the media obligations he felt here as he did in Japan, which is it's cool to hear, because like for me it was a shocker going from the small leagues to the UFC.
Yeah, so he's at least going from the bigger promotions where they're filling up arenas and sometimes even stadiums there.
And he's the big draw.
Yeah,
right. So he's getting all the media, all the obligations, and he's doing all of the steps. So I'm looking to see a great performance from him, and he's promising to finish the fight. And we all know how much heart and how durable Pantoja has, how durable he is. And I'm really excited to see this fight. And he was even talking about Pantoja's age, and he said how he doesn't think it's negative. He actually thinks Pantoja is in his prime, so he's expecting a really good, tough fight. And I'm excited to watch it.
Here for the official weigh-in for UFC 310 Pantoja versus Asakura,
MMA Awards,
and we begin on the main
John Anik.
card. In the welterweight co-main event, the number 3 ranked contender, the undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Shavkat Rakhmonov, the first one to the stage, undefeated, 18-0, 18 finishes, pretty unbelievable.
That's a perfect record. Not only the 18 wins, but that he finished everybody.
That's a scary man.
Yeah, yeah.
171, the official weight for Shavkat Rakhmonov.
I like that Ian Garry doesn't see him as a boogeyman, which I find interesting, because a lot of people they don't want to take this fight against Shavkat. But Ian stepped up and took it.
They felt each other in the gym before.
All right, next fighter to the scale is the gentleman around whom this fight card was built, the undisputed UFC flyweight champion of the world, the cannibal Alexandre Pantoja. 124.5, the official weight for the champion Alexandre Pantoja.
All right, Pantoja makes weight 124.5 pounds for the champion.
It looks great with a shaved head.
I like the shaggy Pantoja better.
No, I like this one. He looks serious.
Oh. All right, we got a bit of a lull in the action here. Well, in the meantime, we've got the main event. One half has made weight. And here comes Gimbo, who is facing a ranked opponent. Number 14 ranked, like yourself, but in a different division.
I'm actually number 13, Aaron.
Oh, I'm sorry about
I've
that.
slid up. I've slid up without fighting.
That's a lucky number. At least in my religion it is.
171, the official weight for Gimbo.
171.
He's excited about this fight. I was listening to him in his presser, man. He can't wait to go out there and seize the moment.
Well, he really manifested this.
Yeah.
At 171 pounds. But he said he wanted to weigh in as a backup. It was supposed to be Vicente Luque against Nick Diaz on this card. And Gimbo said, I want to weigh in as a backup for this. And I think that is what made him be first in line.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I heard that he asked to fight him, but I didn't know the circumstances.
155.5, the official weight for Chase Hooper.
Is starting to look more like an adult now.
Yeah.
He really is, 155 pounds.
He's really growing into a man right in front of our eyes.
I'm so proud.
So proud of him.
But, yeah.
He's got a great fight, actually.
The UFC legend, the Hall of Famer, the Carpenter, Clay Guida.
All right, so I got some trivia for you. I'm 42 years old. Clay Guida is one of 2 UFC fighters that's older than me that's on the roster.
No way.
Who is the other one?
Stipe?
No.
Oh.
He's retired, but he's younger than me anyways.
Glover Teixeira.
He's also retired.
Oh, man, I don't know.
Holly Holm.
Holly Holm is older than you?
No, Holly Holm is older
wow,
than
she looks great.
One of 2 fighters.
155, the official weight for Clay Guida.
Speaking of looking great,
he looks great.
He looks awesome.
Fantastic, man. He looks like a young buck. He doesn't look in his 40s at all.
He always has so much energy at weigh-ins. It's pretty incredible.
I know, and all his fights are always entertaining, win or lose.
Yeah, and speaking of entertaining, you keep giving me these great teas. You're putting it on a tee for me. Nate Landwehr, Nate the Train in the UFC, baby.
Yeah, he's always exciting. He's looking to go out there and have a war with Doo Ho Choi. I'm excited to see how that's going to go.
145.5, the official weight for Nate the Train.
Well, I think that's what we're going to get. And I mentioned to you, I was here the other day for media day, and I was leaving the bathroom, and walking in was Doo Ho Choi. And he just smiled at me. You know, you just would never know from this guy's demeanor that he's a fighter.
Yeah, no, 100%. Even Nate's a sweetheart. Joshua Van is also a guy who wanted the fight against Cody, right? He wanted that.
Yeah, he's taken a couple short notice fights, one of which he lost actually against Charles Johnson earlier this year in Denver. But I think Josh Van has a very bright future.
Yeah, he's very well rounded.
Yeah, his striking in particular really, really solid for this division. His opponent Cody Durden's no joke either, ranked number 14. Unlike you, who's ranked number 13.
On the featherweight division, UFC Hall of Famer Doo Ho Choi.
Here he is. He was in the Hall of Fame, UFC 206. His fight against Cub Swanson. I was there for that fight, and that was one of the best fights I've ever seen in person.
How old is he? He's young, right?
He's young. I think he's
30.
I think he's probably 30.
He just turned 30, I think, right? He's already in the UFC Hall of Fame. How incredible is that?
Yeah, in the fight wing.
The fight wing, yeah, but still, it's still a huge accomplishment.
Absolutely, and that fight is deserved to be in there.
Yeah.
Took place in Toronto.
Next fighter up in the flyweight division, the number 14 ranked contender, custom-made Cody Durden.
There he is, custom made. That must be a new nickname. I don't ever think I've heard him be referred to as that before.
Yeah. No, he's got to put his arms down.
And this guy is an absolute
We get nervous
dog.
on the scale sometimes. We don't think we want to pose already for the pictures.
126, the official
So
weight
like his
for
opponent,
Cody
Joshua Van,
Durden.
he makes 126 pounds.
So we're 100% so far, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That's fantastic.
But Cody Durden's just an absolute dog. I love watching this guy fight. You can never count him out.
He has great conditioning, man. He just keeps going and going and going.
One of the best featherweights in the world, the number 5 ranked contender, the undefeated Machado.
And this man fought a teammate of yours earlier this year in Toronto.
Very controversial.
Yeah, a bit of a controversial fight for sure.
Now we have new rules for it.
Yeah, for the
downed
opponent.
Downed opponent, yeah. It's very interesting.
What do you think of the hairdo?
I don't like it. I don't like the moppy hair guys.
You don't
Because
like
you know
it?
what it is? You know what it is I don't like about it? Is when you get hit, your hair flips back.
And
it makes it look like you got hit much harder than you did.
And
Right?
that does play
That-
a big role with the judges.
Yeah,
You're
of
100%
course,
right.
because the visuals, the optics really plays a difference. So when you shave your head, you don't look as bad when you take a shot. But if your hair is flowing left and right every time you get hit, it's a nightmare. I love that nickname.
Rank number 13, like yourself, Amos.
Yeah.
This
Bryce
time, but
Mitchell,
in the
man.
featherweight
Thug
division.
Nasty. I love that nickname. I'm really hoping he does well this weekend. You know, he's had a hard last couple of fights.
He's fighting Crone Gracie. It's the first fight that I can recall in the UFC that is being contested between two men who both believe the world is flat, that the earth is flat. So
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
Crone thought it was flat.
Yeah,
I knew
both-
Bryce thought it was
both
flat.
Crone and
Yeah.
Bryce believe that the earth is flat. Very controversial opinion.
Yeah,
It's been refuted many times by science, but hey.
not by their science standards. Chris Weidman is going to be coming by later.
Yeah, hopefully.
coming by the booth.
So in New York, he was supposed to fight this man, Eric Anders, his opponent. This is actually a catchweight 195-pound fight.
Okay.
But we played Connect 4 at Media Day in New York, and I beat him 2 out of 3 falls. I beat him twice, and he's hungry for revenge.
Oh, that's awesome. So
194
you smoked him,
and a
basically.
half. The
You
official
buried him in the
No,
dust.
no,
Is that what you're saying?
It was DC that I smoked. DC, I think I beat him 4 out of 5 times.
No way.
But he recorded the one time he beat me. He got his phone out.
Ah.
He was very proud.
Randy Brown is someone who's been in the UFC for a long time, a lot of experience. I'm really excited to see him fight against Brian Battle.
Sneaky candidate for fight of the night.
Yeah.
Randy Brown and Brian Battle. They both always bring it, and that's going to be
Yeah.
a great fight.
He seems very confident. He says that, you know, he's never lost twice in a row.
171.
He's been on a few
the official weight
tears, a few
for Randy
runs.
Brown.
He's always had hiccups and the moments that count, and hopefully this weekend he makes it count.
I was very surprised that he was the underdog in this fight. He's like a 2-1 underdog against Brian Battle.
Well, you know, a lot of times the odds has to do with how popular you are. And right now, after the speech, after being on the mic, after his last win, Brian Battle, he got a lot of fans.
For sure. Very outspoken.
Yeah.
Here's Max Griffin fighting out of Sacramento, California.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fights in UFC as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
This guy's been around. He actually came to
Lot
train
of
at TriStar years ago. Yeah, he looks great. Phenomenal shape.
170, the official
70
weight
on the
for
dot.
Max
Championship
Griffin.
weight. For Max Payne
Yeah,
Griffin.
he looks like he's in great shape, man.
You ever play the video game Max Payne?
Max Payne, yeah, when I was younger.
Solid video game.
Our next fighter to the stage is the former UFC interim heavyweight champion and the number 2 ranked contender competing on the pay-per-view main card, Bongama Sirogan.
/ actor. They forgot to mention that he's an actor
Yeah.
now. He's on the show La Cage.
He's also in
On
another
Netflix.
film coming up as
Oh, is
well.
he?
And he's actually going to be one of the stars of an upcoming French film that he shot sometime this year.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, he said that he might actually be doing a second season of the La Cage because it's very popular.
I haven't yet to watch it. Maybe I'll watch it on my flight home.
Yeah, you got to watch it, man. If you're us and JSP are in that thing.
He's in phenomenal shape. I've never seen him this cut before.
Yeah.
245 and a
Wow.
half, the official weight for Bongama Sirogan.
Really the perfect frame for him, I think.
The heavyweight
245
cutoff is 265, correct?
266.
Oh,
It's
266.
non-championship.
Yeah, 266. So he's 20 pounds under the thing. He looks in great shape.
I love watching Cyril Gane fight. In fact,
Yeah. I
really
wonder-
got to start in Quebec at TKO.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. That's true. And I'm wondering if Volkov is going to try to take him down for this fight, especially after what he saw against John Jones, right? It didn't seem like he had much on the ground.
All right, but yeah, on the flip side of that, though, in his next fight against Sergey Spivak, who really relies on his grappling,
Yeah.
Cyril did a great job of neutralizing him. And, you know, Volkov, I think, is good on the ground. I just don't think his wrestling is really at a level like a John Jones where he's going to be able to seamlessly take Cyril Gane down. But I do think that should be a part of his strategy in a 3-round fight.
I definitely think it should be a part of the strategy because the last fight was basically they did striking the whole time.
Yeah, 5
And
rounds of
Cyril
striking.
that's his wheelhouse, right? That's his bread and butter. So I know, like, even though you don't have the highest pedigree, but there are ways to strike your way in or to find holes in your opponent's ability when they throw strikes to enter a takedown, right? So maybe he was studying enough tape that he found a hole to be able to take advantage of taking him down or getting to his back or clinching him up against the fence and scoring some kind of trip or something like that. Because he's also pretty tall.
Yeah, 6'7".
Volkov. He's 6'7", right? So he can be using trips instead of takedowns, right? He could try to tie him up and then use hooks and sweeps and things like that. So I'm excited to see how he game planned.
And you look at the fight with Francis Ngannou
Yeah.
and Cyril Gane, and Francis is more of a striking-based fighter, but sometimes you want to take that path of least resistance, and I think that you can always look at that as something you can exploit when it comes to Cyril Gane. But that said, he hasn't fought in a year, so
Yeah.
I'm sure he's been working on that a lot.
Yeah. Who we have next? Eric Anders is coming
That's
up.
right. Played linebacker at the University of Alabama. for their national championship team.
What was the reason why they canceled the last date?
Eric had food poisoning, so that's
food
why.
poisoning.
the
So was
fight's
it after the
happening
weigh-in?
2 weeks, yeah, like after weigh-ins, they
See?
weighed in. Chris
That's
found
why you
out
come on the
5
weigh-in
hours
show.
before the event and thought that they were pranking him. The
Oh,
fight's
wow.
off. It's a nightmare.
193, the official weight for
193.
Eric Anders.
That's another thing. Is like even if the cut goes super well and then you go out to eat and then something happens, you catch a bug, your stomach is so tender, it's so soft. You haven't eaten very harsh foods. Even a little bit of too spicy of a meal could throw you off.
So Eric fought a friend of mine, training partner of yours, Elias Theodorou, may rest in peace.
Yes.
And in Toronto, and after Elias beat Eric,
Yep.
he came and did an interview with me. And before we started the interview, he goes, I took a look at the medical sheet beforehand, and Eric weighed 233 pounds tonight.
No way.
From 185 pounds to 233.
How's that even physically possible?
38 pounds.
That's incredible. yeah, I've never heard of that before. That's a lot of weight to put on.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I think it's 48 pounds.
Yeah.
My math is really bad. It's probably not even that. I apologize to
You're not a
all the
numbers
math,
guy.
all
Don't
the math
question
fans
the
out there.
numbers.
This is Lucas Bresky, who is opening up the card against Kennedy and Zechiku in the heavyweight division. This guy's got big power. Hasn't done that well thus far in the UFC, 1-4 record. But I think that you look at his power, he's dangerous no matter what.
234, the official weight for Lucas Bresky.
Any of these heavyweights have a one-touch power. You know what I mean? They generate so much force. There's so much weight on their bodies.
Bresky in particular, though, he's got really good mechanics with his striking, and that generates, I think, a lot of power off his back foot.
Yeah, and I think some of the holes in in general, and when people talk about heavyweights, it's their defense. No one is saying how bad their offense is. They all have huge power. A lot of them, there's so much weight, but the guy who can really go in there and cover and hit back and counter and slip strikes is going to do super well. Like John Jones doesn't take that much damage. I think that's one of the reasons why he's so great. Also.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes defense is the best offense.
Yeah,
and that's really bode well for John over his career.
Of course.
Here's Vicente Luque,
Luque,
fighting out of Team Killcliff, just like Shavkat, Rakhmonov, and Ian Garry used to train out of Team Killcliff. So they've got a great room of 170-pounders, Gilbert Burns among them as well. Great gym for fighters at 170 and 185 pounds that we've seen really become prominent in Florida.
Oh, we have our first guest here.
All right.
Oh, Mr. Pantoja, how are you, man? You look great.
Thank you, Alexandre.
Thank you.
Appreciate you joining us.
Oh, yeah.
He is the undisputed flyweight champion of the world, and he's been on quite a tear. And tomorrow night takes on a newcomer to the UFC, Kai Asakura. So, how was the weight cut for you? 124.5 pounds.
This is the best cut weight in my life. Pretty good job. I think this work, what I did right now, is like something like show me my mature. 34. This is my third, my fourth fight for the title. I have one more opportunity to show all the world I'm the best flyweight.
I'm going to ask you, Eamon, does every weight cut after you make weight feel like the best weight cut of your life because it's so satisfying to make the weight?
No, it doesn't always feel the best. Some of them are bad. But, talking outside of the weight cut, how do you feel him, stylistically, how does he match up with you? Because he thinks that he's got great offense and he's going to try to finish you tomorrow night. And how do you feel like you're going to work around his dynamic striking? Because he throws flying knees, he throws a lot of heavy punches as well. What's kind of like the general game plan?
This makes very exciting for me. I show all my fights how aggressive I can be. But of course, I think my grapplers have an advantage about him. And there's different opponent, is different style. He's bringing some fresh blood for the flyweight. I think I don't talk just for me, but for all the flyweight. This year is amazing for us. And now, last pay-per-view of the year, you have the flyweight fight, that's incredible. And that's it, super happy for make that fight with Asakura, I think that makes sense because what I did in the past, fight with everybody in the division, now UFC bringing me a champion for me, that's amazing.
I know you mentioned your age before, and I heard him talk about your age. And me personally, I don't think your age is a factor. I think actually you're in your prime. The fights that you've been putting on, they've been incredible, and your performance has been getting better. How do you feel? Do you feel like you're still improving? And how's your body handling all of this, the last championship fights?
I'm still learning, still involved, and I think in the fight, and the train, of course, but in the fight, I'm going to do what I did in the train, and what I did in the training right now is like I know the shortcuts, that's the about you talk about the age and everything. I started to fight when I have 17. You know, now with 34, I have like a double. You know, I have 17 years professional. That's incredible for me. What I did right now, you know, coming to the championship again, you know, the chance to prove one more time in the best. That's what me and my team talk about every time. You know, we're not gonna defend nothing. You know, we're gonna conquer one more time. You know, that's about that. You know, I have the chance to prove one more time the best flyweight. You know.
I think it's incredible. I think you still have that hunger, and I like that the passion that you bring into the fights. Obviously, he's coming to try to challenge you and take your title away. And right now, UFC is your house, and I'm excited to see you defend it this weekend. I want to ask you, these are your sons over here. Do you have any plans for them for training? Do you have them in the room, or do you want to keep them away from fighting? What are your plans for the kids?
You know, my kids here show me. I want to show my kids about the tough work, the cut weight, and everything we pass. And but you know, also I think it's like I say to my kids, maybe go to the fights the easy way for you guys, like because your dad is a champ. Maybe you make 1, 2, 3 fights, and you can be a UFC fight too, you know. But I have a hard life, you know, and that's life my kids don't need, you know.
Yeah.
This is something make me stronger. This is something make me more powerful in the octagon, you know. But I want my kids to go to the college. I don't have that opportunity, you know. And that's going to be my belt, you know, go see my kids in the college and make a good life.
I've got a question for your son. Who's this handsome man on your shirt here?
That's my dad.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. It looks like your hairdo now is more like your son here. And on the picture here, it's more like this son. Which hairstyle do you like better? You like your dad with the shaggy hair or the short hair?
The short hair,
Why?
Because like it looks better and like doesn't take that much time.
Like a killer like this, no?
He
He's like a killer right
all
now.
the time because I start to be a ball. Yeah. And then he left all the time in the morning. But that's good, you know. I'm so proud I have my kids here. That's a huge support for me.
Yeah.
I think everybody know I talk this a lot of interviews about how much important is the family for me, you know. Because when you're done Saturday, I back to home and stay with my family. That's all support I need.
Another thing about your career, I'm sorry to cut you off
No,
there.
of course.
We've got Coach Bahumpa here. Yes. You went from kind of camp to camp early in your career. How important was it for you to become a champion, to get your footing in Florida, have a camp that's consistent for you, a coach that's consistent for you, a home for your family? How big of a factor was that for you?
That's proof my choices make I make the right choices, you know. Move to Florida. I moved to Florida to found the Bahumpa, you know. That's why I go to the America Top 10. After I lose in one of my fights, I know I need to follow Bahumpa in America Top 10. And after 2 years training there, I figured out I can be a champion of the world, you know. And that's proof about the hard work. And I talk about him all the time. It's not much about I don't treat him like a work. He's about my family too, you know. He part of my family. And when everything's done, we're still together.
All right, Alexandre, thank you so much for doing this. What are your son's names?
Kawa.
All right. Thank you both for joining us as well. Thank you, guys. Best of luck tomorrow night.
Okay? Enjoy.
All right, that was
Coach.
the undisputed champion of the flyweight division, Alexandre Pantoja. All right, let's go back to the scales.
Such a nice guy, Pantoja. He loves family. I love his whole mindset about everything.
And just a brilliant fighter. It's been great to watch his progression in the UFC, and I really do think that was the X factor for him, was moving to a place where he had some consistency, and he found that consistency, and I think that really helped him onto the championship path.
You know, some people still have the old mentality of like fighters are barbaric and this and that, but a lot of actually fighters have families and they're very loving and caring people, regular people that just fight in the cage for a living.
Yeah, I think that there's such a beauty to the sport that I'm really hoping that people continue to discover the strategy behind it. And like you said, like you rarely hear about instances where people that are competing in martial arts have any sort of issues outside of the cage. You know what I mean? Like
I think it's more of an exception than the rule,
100%.
right? You see it way less often, I find, in MMA than you see in other sports. Like in other sports, you see some of these athletes on the news all the time. But in MMA, most of these guys, they're family guys.
Well, because at its core, when you're first getting into martial arts, the principle is self-defense.
Yeah.
And you don't use these tools for anything other than that. And of course, in terms of mixed martial arts, it's for competition. So I think that it's really important that people understand that especially right now, people getting into the sport right now really look at it like a sport. Early on in the early days of MMA, I think people had a lot of trouble understanding it, but now that it's been around for so long, people really get what is behind the sport.
Yeah, of course. But even as parents, when you bring your kid to martial arts, what you're really trying to do is character development, teaching them discipline, teaching them consistent work over time to get better, right? That's the belt ranking system is all about that, right? It's about making your kid understand that if you work at something over time, you can improve yourself slowly but surely, and you can get to these different levels. And when you have that kind of base of martial arts understanding, you usually have a good character and you treat people well.
Yeah, 100%. It's about character building and building your skills and self-improvement, really. And I think it's such a valuable thing for kids to get into at a young age. And, hey, if you end up being somebody who's a savant, like George St. Pierre, your teammate, like yourself, you can get to the highest level of the sport. And there are a lot of people, like every weekend, there's 10, 20 cards around the world where people we may never hear of, but are still putting in that work and trying to just improve and get better and compete.
Yeah, of course, exactly. And then you see, like, even if you compete somewhere else, like somebody was mentioning how there's 3 M1 global champions fighting on this card on Saturday, and then there's also the Asakura, who's also a champion in another league. And if you keep at it, you can make it to the UFC, which is the biggest promotion in the world right now. And this is everyone's dream, is to come fight here.
So while we were talking to Pantoja, former champion, Aljamain Sterling made weight 145.5 pounds. Nice. He's moved up to the featherweight division, looked good in his debut at 145 pounds, and now he's got a really, really tough matchup against undefeated Movsar Evloev, and surprisingly on the prelims that will be airing on Sportsnet.
Yeah, listen, a lot of people are counting Aljamain out. I'm not going to lie. I think he's going to win. I think he gets to Movsar's back. Listen, I expect it to be more of a wrestling/grappling fight out of these two guys. I don't think they're going to spend too much time in the striking. And I think after watching Arnold be able to defend against Movsar's takedowns pretty successfully, I think that Aljamain has a path to the back.
Yeah, I think that you've seen a lot of tape on Movsar Evloev from helping
Arnold
Allen prepare. So if anybody sees any openings, I think you're probably a good candidate for that.
Aljamain comes from a really good team, and really high-level black belts around him, and a lot of his teammates compete at the highest levels of sports jiu-jitsu. And sports jiu-jitsu is always evolving, and not everybody in MMA has the modern game of grappling. Some of them stop, because maybe their coaches didn't evolve to the modern game. But Aljamain is surrounded by a lot of guys who are always evolving around him. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can out-grapple Movsar tomorrow, using jiu-jitsu to beat Movsar's wrestling.
Here's my question for you. If Movsar Evloev wins, he's beaten Diego Lopez before.
Yes.
We know that Alexander Volkanovski. I almost call him Alexandre Volkanovski. But Alexander Volkanovski likely getting the next shot at the featherweight champion, Ilia Topuria. But do you think that a win for Movsar, staying undefeated, beating a former champion like Aljamain, would make him the next candidate for that title bout?
It's hard to say because there's so much hype around Diego, and Diego's been fighting a lot recently. And I think we have another guest. I'm just going to let the guest come in. Sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice
Temba,
to see.
how are you?
Nice to see you again, Temba. Appreciate you doing this.
Good to see you again, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well. So you took this fight on short notice, 107. Not that short notice. You've been
manifested. Do you not listen to his interviews?
Yeah. Okay.
Timba manifest. He knew
this
it was
an easy weight cut for you then.
Short notice for Luque, not for me. It's short notice for Luque, not for me. I don't have short notice, man. I work hard all the time. They have to catch up with me through my hard work, So maybe I gave him a start, but I'm ahead. In the last 10 years, if you put pound for pound the work that we have put together, me and him, I'm way ahead with due respect. Even though I was not in the UFC, I worked so hard. And I know that tomorrow.
We had a nice long interview the other day, so I'm going to let Eamon ask you some questions because I feel like I'm hogging you. We spoke for such a long time. So, Eamon, go ahead.
So, listen, I know you're very grateful for your opportunity to get here to fight a ranked guy, and that you're grateful to have won all these fights in UFC and everything that you're getting. Tell me, I know the fight's going to be hard tomorrow. If you can pick the perfect scenario of if it's hard, what for you? What would
if he is tough enough to take what I'm going to give, then maybe it will be hard. Brother, I'm not here to play.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I know you probably put a lot of thought into it, a lot of watching a lot of tape. What do you see as his weakness? What's your easiest path to victory?
Brother, I'm a workhorse. That's all I know. If I'm going to have to outwork him tomorrow, I'm going to outwork him. What I know is this. When he step in there tomorrow, I'm going to be a ranked fighter when you leave that cage. Whether anyone likes it or not, man, I'm going to become the champion in this division. 12 months from now, I'll be a champion.
I mean, for me, I don't think anybody doesn't like it because you have such a great story. You know, you've come from not much, and you've made a beautiful life for yourself, for your family. I know you said you hadn't seen your family very much this last 6 months, only 13 days or something like that. How much does it mean to you to be able to provide for them so well, doing what you like?
All right, next
I don't like fighting. I'm not. No. I love winning, and winning loves me. And fighting is the only sport I love. It's the only sport that I win it. So I love winning. I'm obsessive. I'm a competitor. I'm not a fighter. I'm a competitor, and I'll compete to the nail to win in anything. And if you know me, you know. I always want to come out on top. So
Machado, Garry.
Tomorrow there's no any other difference. Tomorrow I'm coming out there to do my job, and tomorrow I'm going to put Luque out.
It's funny, my teammate is George St. Pierre, and he always says that he doesn't like fighting at all. No. He loves the winning, he loves the life it brings. So that's great to know that you're like have that same mindset as one of the greats.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like many people want to lie and pretend so that the world loves them and they fit into the world. I would rather be one of the few, and I'm gonna be honest with you.
Speaking,
yeah, I don't love fighting. I love winning.
Yeah. Speaking of the greats, you've gone one-on-one with the great one. He's helped you in your life, The Rock. I hate to ask you to do this right after cutting weight, but can you give me your best impression of The Rock? Can you cut a promo on Vicente Luque in the style of Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
I don't know, bro. He's got a deep voice. I got a soft voice now. I just cut weight, so I don't know, bro. I don't know how to do that. But yeah, I can maybe try his laugh.
All right. Well, if you could smell what Gimbo's cooking, it's going to be something special tomorrow night. Yourself against Vicente Luque, ranking on the line. Really appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by.
All the best.
Thank you.
All right. That's Themba Gimbo, tremendous up-and-coming fighter who hopes to be champion. Well, I mean, neither did George, and he's hoping to become champion in that same division next year.
It's funny how that is. They don't like the fighting, but they like what it brings. It's an interesting mindset. I argue with this against George all the time. I'm like, no, George, you must have loved it. He's like, no, man, I don't like any of it.
George said he used to try to run away on the night of the fights. Like he wanted to go. He wanted to bail.
Hope that somebody would go in the back and turn off all the lights and cut off the stadium and everyone would have to leave. But it's interesting because he used that fuel of fear to perform his best. So it was really interesting. Clay Guida is right behind you, actually.
All right. I'm going to give him that same trivia question I asked you.
Okay, great. Clay, how's it going? Thanks for coming on the show.
So Brian Battle has just missed weight. 175 pounds for Brian Battle. So he unfortunately has missed weight by 4 pounds for his welterweight bout against Randy Brown. Joining us now is Clay the Carpenter Guida. So Clay, I'm 42 years old. You're one of 2 fighters in the UFC that are older than me. Do you know who the other one is?
I got this question wrong.
Oh, man, I would have said Andre Arlovski, but he's not with the UFC anymore. Give me one more moment.
This person used to train with Andre Arlovski, if that's a clue, in New Mexico.
All right, next fighter to the scale.
I was training with them in New Mexico as well. He's one of my
must have
teammates,
been.
probably.
Yeah, 100%.
Has this athlete fought recently?
No.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Kind of on the roster, but not really on the roster.
No, on the roster.
Okay, but not active.
Former champion.
Female.
124.
Oh, Holly Holm.
There you go.
Holly Holm. There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Championship main event.
So you're turning 43, what, this month?
Tomorrow.
I'm
sorry, Sunday.
Sunday, well, a birthday gift for you. You're going to be fighting Chase Hooper. So what do you think of Chase? Obviously, he's looked really good, 155 pounds. Fought your teammate Slava Bolshoi in his last fight.
Yep, Chase has looked great. Poses a lot of problems for a lot of fighters. His range, his distance, his striking abilities, his grappling technique. But he hasn't seen the hard wrestling pace that we bring, our tenacity that we bring to the cage. And that's where I think we separate ourselves with our cardio from every other athlete that comes out there.
Yeah, I remember actually we trained together once. You came to TriStar for a week, like maybe 10 years ago.
Yes.
But yeah, no, of course, and I've watched all your fights. You're an amazing fighter. Chase is much younger and, in my opinion, much more green than you. Obviously, you have a crazy amount of fight experience. So what would be your path to victory? Is this one where you're still going to go out there and do the wrestling, or you're going to try to strike with him and show him that you're more well-rounded than he is, or you're going to challenge his jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, that's a great question. This fight is going to be all over the place because Chase is one of those guys. He brings the fight to you. He moves forward. He doesn't have a whole lot of head movement. He really brings the fight straight forward. And, yeah, we're going to have to rely on our wrestling, on our jiu-jitsu, and
obviously, for me, I think your cardio is a weapon, like you said, cardio king, of course. And you're very resilient, and you're always trying to find paths to victory. Tell me, what is like one of the more obvious weaknesses that you see as a veteran in Chase's game?
Chase doesn't have many weaknesses. It's, I would just say, time in the cage, the experience. What does he have? 6 or 8 UFC fights, I believe. But in a short amount of time, he's 24, 25. That's a lot of fights already in the UFC. I didn't get into the UFC till I was 25, so he's definitely ahead of the curve. But he's coming up against a savvy veteran.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. We're really excited to see you put on a great show tomorrow. Is there anything anybody want to thank, or something you want to say to the fans back home?
Oh, we want to thank the Canadian fans. You guys are awesome. I love hanging out in Montreal, in Toronto, in Vancouver. Some of our greatest times up there. We did a really cool fishing vacation when I was little in Saskatchewan, Lost Lake, and now I run a fishing guide service.
Oh, that's awesome. Shout out to the fishing guide service.
Gills and Thrills of Guida. You guys ever want to come out fishing? Come check us out.
All right. Last thing for you. You like them? They're pretty good, right? Last thing for you. So you mentioned
I captured Aaron perfectly, I feel like.
Yeah, it's not bad. My teeth are a little bit better than the one that but you mentioned him coming to Montreal. I've got a question, see if how good your memory is. So when I was like a junior producer, we produced a radio show, and I once had to have in my car, it was yourself, a man named John Fosco, John Jones, and his wife stuffed into my Toyota Prius to come to a radio show. Do you remember this?
I remember we did the radio show. It was at a bar. It was at a
Trophy Sports Grill, you know,
oh,
Resto
yeah,
Bar
of course.
Trophies.
Yeah, I've done shows with them.
I remember that exactly. I remember doing the interview with John, and I was fighting Diego Sanchez coming up, and John.
You said some pretty bad things about Diego Sanchez that night, and that ended up being a Hall of Fame fight.
Yeah, there you go, man. Hey, we had to put on a show, man, for everybody. But that was a lot of fun. That was the first time I met John and his wife, and that turned out to be a fun night, a fun weekend. I was thinking about that recently. Wow, that's what card was that? Do you remember?
It was a GSP headline card in Montreal. I think it might have been the Sarah rematch.
Okay. Oh. No, because I remember I watched that one on TV. It might have been, was it maybe him and Koscheck, maybe?
Was that in Montreal, him and Koscheck? I don't remember.
Because I know I wasn't at either Sarah fight, but man, nonetheless, Canadian fans are the greatest. You guys are so intense and so supportive. We really appreciate you guys.
One thing I remember from that card was Matt Hamill was there, and Matt Hamill says he felt the arena shake because he was deaf. He felt the arena shake in Montreal when George was coming out.
It was a Matt Sarah fight then, because I remember it got so loud that I couldn't hear anymore. Like I was tone deaf by how loud it became. It was crazy how they were cheering for him.
You guys put on great cards. Is there another one scheduled up there yet?
Yeah, maybe.
There's a rumor.
You never know.
We don't get in any trouble.
Maybe I'll get invited by you guys to come up there.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I would love to have you come to the gym.
I've got a van now, so you don't need to stuff into the back of the Prius with John Fosco.
Sounds great. Hey, by the way, our boy Johnny just had his first child this past week. So congrats to Johnny Fosco. Proud of you, man.
All right, thanks, Clay. Always appreciate you.
Always appreciate you. Come by the gym anytime. See you.
All right. No problem. Yeah, I mean, they didn't get my last name right on this one. They put 2 T's.
It's part of the comedy, guys. It's part of the comedy.
Okay, well, I'll accept that.
I've got a few more back here, but whatever.
Maybe we'll show them off a little bit later. Yeah, Clay Guida against Chase Hoopers. That's a really interesting matchup. I always love talking to Clay. And, I mean, some of the things you said about Diego Sanchez that night we cannot repeat here, but that ended up being a Hall of Fame fight, one of the best pre-fight stare-downs ever.
Very intense guys, both of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like this matchup with Chase Hooper because they both bring it, and I'm excited to see how the young guard is going to take over the old guard. It's going to be interesting because they're very similar in a lot of ways and different in some ways.
Well, if Chase Hooper wins, he might become like the next Dominic Cruz. They'll have beaten Bolshoi, and then will have beaten Clay, and that he's like the new team alpha male killer, like Dominic Cruz used to be.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm interested to see if he can actually score dominant grappling positions on Clay Guida, or if Clay Guida's cardio is going to be too much and fatigue him, or who can win the striking out of the two. You know what I mean? That's going to be something that I'm looking forward to watch.
All right. Well, our great producer Dan just brought us. Here's some of the. So who made these? Before I show them off, who made?
Yeah, my buddy Alan from TriStar Burlington. He's, working on learning how to use AI. So look at these guys. Look how regal we look in this one.
Yeah, I like that one. I think
mean,
that
this is-
I actually look a lot like Steve Carell in this picture, in this mock-up. I think that's a good one. Here, what else we got? We got the weigh-in guys.
The weigh-in guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah, that one's not bad. So
I mean, are you Will Ferrell in this one? Or is
I-
it me? Yeah, you're Will
I'm
Ferrell.
Will
You
Ferrell,
look
yeah.
incredible like Will Ferrell. I mean, you might have to do your hair
I
like
might
that.
have to just get like a
You need
perm.
a perm. You need a
Yeah,
perm.
curl my
you
hair.
definitely need a perm.
Yeah, my dad had one of those back in like the 1970s.
And I feel like this one really captures your personality.
Wow, the guy who cooks meth.
Cooks meth. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
really just making money, me and you,
Yeah.
out there on the range,
See,
running from the police.
We're making it the fun way by doing broadcasting, not by being on the run from the law, being on the lam. But yeah, great job by Alan. Shout out to Alan for all of his hard work in making those great posters. We're missing the Boys in the Hood one, but that's okay.
Yeah, there's a few missing, but it's all good.
And actually, you have one that you wanted to show. Brian Battle made 175 pounds. He missed by 4 pounds.
Oh.
Do you have the one that you made?
Yes, I have one.
All right. Well, let's get
Hold
that
on a
going. I'll tap dance a little bit while Eamon gets
Hold
his
on a
phone
second,
out.
guys.
So yeah, unfortunately, Brian Battle
he coming?
175
Guys,
pounds.
I don't know if you can
yeah,
see
here.
this. Can you see this?
Can we zoom in on that? That's the
Hey, what's happening,
uncut
man? How are you?
uncut
Good,
weight
good,
poster.
Good. Vern, can you zoom in on this one? This is for Brian Battle. Uncut gems, but uncut weight. Look at that.
All right,
It's
there it
going up
is.
live.
I like it. Uncut weight. Unfortunate for Brian Battle, who missed the weight by 4 pounds earlier.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, we've got Chris Weidman here, and
Chris, listen.
so Chris is already getting the Connect 4 board. He's ready to go. So when we were in New York for Media Day, unfortunately, a fight of yours that didn't happen is going to take place tomorrow night, God willing. Between yourself and Eric Anders, we played best out of 3, and I beat you 2 of those 3 times. And you've been hungry for revenge, and you even brought your son here, who gets to watch me decimate you at Connect 4. We need to get a mic here
Come
for
on the
Chris.
show.
Here.
All right, let's do this. All right, so best of 3. We all get you want to like rock paper scissors to see who goes first, or?
I mean, this is our show, but you can make the rules. Sure.
You
No,
go first. You go first.
no, we'll do
Chris, I was
we'll do
saying-
rock paper scissors.
All right, ready?
Chris-
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
All right, so you're going
Chris, if
first.
there's a draw,
All right.
we're willing to. Aaron's willing to fight you since you just cut weight.
I would hate that it's a draw. I would hate if there's a draw. I don't want that.
All right. Let's see how we do here. Eamon, you want to do some play-by-play for us?
Yeah, I mean the strategy right now, I'm not loving it.
For who? For him or for
For
me?
Weidman, man, are you going straight up? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, my bad. Oh, the
Oh, we're
board.
gonna turn. Oh, all right. Let's
Guys,
go.
we're gonna
Put
tr-
that back
we
where
gotta,
it
we
went.
gotta have it like this.
That was where? That was here.
We're gonna create an unfair
You had one
advantage.
here, right?
Come, yeah, switch with me.
Is that where you had one? Okay, yeah. Did you just put one in, or you did? Did you just
Come
put
over
it?
here. Come over here.
Oh, okay, but hold on. But then you're gonna have 4. I'm gonna have 3. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
You know what? Come right here. Come right here. You'll see
All
it.
right.
So we're on the same side.
We're doing this kind of stuff here on
We're
the
trying
fly,
to cheat the
so-
man. We're trying to cheat the man. Like, a man cut weight and we're cheating him. Listen, he's
All
got you in
right.
the corner on
It's
this one.
intense.
Straight up, I don't know.
See, Chris usually is part of the UFC's weigh-in show, where they do all kinds of fun hijinks. All right, let's see. Is he trying to set me up here? Chris is doing a good job. He's not giving me a lot of opportunities
How
here.
many games did you play this week, Aaron, to prepare for this?
0 games. We just bought the board yesterday. Because we saw Chris at Media Day, and Chris was hungry for revenge. But Chris is leveling me right now.
He's hungry for water
He's
and
putting
food.
he's putting some good things together here.
This might be a draw, boys.
All right, let me see. Let's put this over here. I'm not missing anything. All right. This is a very competitive game. I don't know if we're going to do 2 out of 3. We have
This
a
is
live
a-
show going on here, Chris. We might have to just do 1 out of 1.
I feel like we should have got one of those timers like in chess. You know, you got less than 1 minute. You got to make all your moves. Put some stress on you guys.
I
All
won.
right. You've won already?
I won.
No, he's got a blocker right there. Why? Oh, I'm surprised he didn't block.
I won.
All right. Chris has already declared victory, but we...
It's over.
Colton saw it too.
It's over.
Is it over? Okay.
Colton still
I'm
sees
not,
it.
I'm not seeing it yet, but we'll get there.
You'll see it. You'll see it. It's over.
I don't know.
Connect 4. Because if he goes here, I go there. He
Oh yeah,
yeah,
now I see.
yeah.
it.
He's got me dull. I'm just
There's
trying.
levels to
I'm
this
just trying to
game.
see if I've got. I'm just trying to see if I've got a 4 right now that I
You
didn't.
don't.
No, I'm done. I'm done. Yep, he got me. All right, Chris. Chris has exacted revenge
He fooled
against
him.
me.
He fooled him.
The scale this morning, competing
Well,
in the UFC's
can I ask you a question about your fight?
welterweight division.
All right,
The
Eric
Ultimate
Anders,
Fighter
now
live
195
winner,
pounds. How are you feeling
Michael
today
Maverick.
versus cutting weight 1 month ago to 185 pounds?
So much better. So much better. You might have beat me 2 weeks ago when I was in New York. So now I feel I just dominated you, so I feel great. Yeah.
It's not even about the weigh in or the weight cut. It's more about dominating me. This is what he's been more excited about.
It's so far from now, so I'm not even worried about that.
You've won the weigh-in battle, you've won the Connect 4 battle, and now you've got the fight ahead of you tomorrow. So you're on a good streak right now.
Yes, I'm feeling good.
170.5,
I'm feeling
the
good.
official weight
And I
for
won on the
Michael
blackjack
Chiesa.
tables this week too, and
Oh,
I'm
nice.
in New York. So I'm in a good spot right now.
What was your haul?
It's too much money. I can't tell you. I
Oh,
don't want
wow,
IRS
that's good.
I don't want the IRS coming at me.
Colton, what did you get out of that?
Yeah. No.
56.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Undisclosed.
Well, so now you don't need to worry about winning fight of the night or submission of the night or knock of the night. You got that out of the way.
I'm pretty happy with how that went.
Hey, Colton, come here for a sec. You know, there's a new Nintendo system coming out in about a year, so maybe that can pre-order that for you. What do you think?
How about a nice vacation after this fight, eh? That could be good.
The money's already spent.
Yeah, we're in. Let's go.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you for joining me. Thank you for exacting revenge. It's now 2-2. Next time I see you, we're going to have to close it out to a best-of-7 series.
Let's go. All right, brother.
All the best for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Good
Nice to meet you,
of
Colton.
course. Nice to see you.
Take care, guys.
All right. So he went for it and got Connect 4.
Listen, I thought he was crazy for just stacking everything up the middle, but he outplayed us both.
Yeah, you know, when you go first, you do have a good statistical advantage over it. And I think, honestly, when I knocked the board over, it kind of threw me a little bit. I got to say, I had my head, I'm always looking 2 or 3 moves ahead, but then when I had to recalibrate
Next time when you
I don't want to make excuses, though.
Next time when you play at home, I'm going to have to come over and just knock it just so you get practice.
Right in the middle.
You don't know what's going to happen on live TV.
Oh, maybe
Chase Super is right behind you.
All right. Hey, Chase, this is called a board game. Chase is a young guy, so have you heard of these before?
This one specifically, I have a little experience. It's been a while, though. I'll see what I can do.
Well, I'm not going to challenge you. Chris Weidman's kind of like a savant with Connect 4, and I beat him twice in New York. We did best out of 3, and he wanted to get revenge. I mean, he did. He got me.
Yeah, I mean, if you win after you already lost, I mean, he's kind of, if he gets 1 while you're still doing, you should have done 2 more games.
Well, that's what I said. But we're doing a live show here, and
Quitting, yeah.
no, I said we'll carry it over next time we see each other.
Very amicable of you. I respect it.
Well, I always love talking to you, Chase, and you're going to be facing an elder statesman of the UFC, Clay Guida. I was saying to Eamon, you're going to become like the new Dominic Cruz if you beat 2 Team Alpha Male guys in a row.
Yeah, it's as the kids call it, we're Team Sigma Male coming up right now.
Wow, all right. Oh, yeah, you've got some skibbity toilet riz going on.
There we go.
You've got to make some Sigma shirts with your face on it, I guess.
Hey, that's fair. We got to get on the trend now. Team Sigma Male, come through.
Tell me, Clay Guida has a lot of fights in the UFC, so a lot of tape.
Yeah.
What is it you see that you could take advantage of against Clay Guida tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's not trying to overwatch the tape. It's like, again, he's got, 36 UFC fights. So we really watched just really the last 5, 6, 7, 8 fights, just seeing what he's trending towards still. And I don't know, I feel like he's pretty short, obviously. He's got great cardio, but I know my jiu-jitsu's better. And I think I can keep up with that pace. I mean, I think I can find the sub in there. I think I can hopefully beat him up on the outside, make him have to shoot in, in the most respectful way possible. He's kind of an old dog, so he's not learning too many new tricks at this point. But even, I so much respect for him being still in the UFC at this point and still fighting young guys like myself. So, here for it.
I just kind of noticed the Fight Brothers version of you looks a little bit like Clay Guida.
Yeah.
Doesn't it a little bit?
Actually, yeah, you're right.
Kind of looks like
That's
Clay
probably
Guida.
why this was his favorite.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I look like him.
He kind of saw himself in the image.
Yeah, no, for sure. I understand your point about him being like an old dog, maybe not necessarily learning a lot of new tricks. But sometimes when you get 2 guys who love to wrestle, who grapple, sometimes the fights end up being a kickboxing fight. And how comfortable do you feel staying on the feet with him if that's what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really confident. As long as I'm able to use my length, like either being all the way in or all the way out. Because he really likes, being the shorter guy, he likes being really close in. So I got to, either stay out real good striking range, or I have some pretty decent elbow, knee type stuff. So that's kind of my all the way in type of plan. But no, I feel pretty confident. Honestly, the striking I think is easier on the cardio than having to wrestle for 15 minutes. But we're prepared for the harder of the options here. So yeah, we'll see.
next year, Dana White's talked a lot about the UFC coming back to Seattle.
Yeah.
And there's been rumors that in Q1 that might be happening. Is that a card that you really want to get on?
Yeah, I heard that was February 22nd. I think they already announced it, more or less. I don't know. It's kind of a quick turnaround, but if it's the right opponent and the right timing, we'll do it. But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard staring down the barrel of this fight, you know, here tomorrow night to be like, let's jump right back in there. But, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it'd be about the same for me. I'd still stay up in a hotel in Seattle. And, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what UFC wants, see what matchups they give us. We'll go from there.
How does this, you making this weight today, does it affect you a lot? Is that even possible to turn around for February so quickly? Especially, you know, the holidays are going to be around there, and I'm sure your family's going to be cooking up some nice meals and stuff for the New Year's as well. So how would that affect you, or would you want to just take a later date?
I think sometimes it takes me a little while to put the dad weight back on. Like I was hovering around like 185.
254 and a half.
You know, like a month or two out from my last fight. So I think I can kind of do that and probably just jump back in and not have to cut, you know, crazy or diet anything crazy. But we'll see. I would like to enjoy the holidays, but got a baby at home I got to pay for, and those things are expensive. Well, I would be mad if I called her a thing. Our baby Ellie that I love so much. It's very expensive.
Shout out to Ellie. Congratulations to you and your wife on having the new baby. How's it going with that?
Good. Ellie, she's out here this week. She won't be going to the fight because actually Bruce Buffer, of all people, was like, if I can tell you one thing, don't bring your baby to the fight this early. It's bad for their ears, so loud.
How old is she?
She's about 6 months.
Okay.
But yeah, she's teething right now, so it wasn't the best sleep this week. But I mean, it hasn't been the best sleep since she was born in June. But that's the dad life. We're having fun. I actually was at the PI yesterday when we were starting the cut, and I was walking by. They have a little store in there, and I saw little pink UFC onesies. So I was, you know, trying to be a good dad. Picked her up one, and yeah, she'll be wearing that fight night.
All right, awesome. Well, here's the pride of Enumclaw, Washington, the dream Chase Hooper. Thank you for doing this.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Always appreciate it. Yeah, always love seeing you. All right, Chase Hooper. He looks dialed in, excited to be fighting tomorrow night against Clay Guida. Pretty big age gap there, I would think. I think Chase is probably about 25 or something along those lines, and Clay's 43.
So the age gap is the same age as Chase.
Yeah.
So he's lived like a whole Chase.
Yeah,
Clay
like,
Guida's
well, pretty much. Like
Chase
if Clay Guida got started early, he could be Chase's father, I guess. If he had him at like 18 or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But it's cool to see another family man. He's happy, you know, he's bringing his family to the event. And he's got a 6-month-old here in Vegas with him for fight week. It's really interesting to hear, you know, like how family-oriented UFC fighters are.
Yeah, I got to stop making board game jokes. He's not that young anymore. Like if he was 18, 19, the board game jokes can fly. But now he's like 25. He has a kid. He looks like, you know, he's really coming into his own. We've got Vicente Luque joining us. One of my favorite guys to talk to, the NMF. Nicest MFer in the UFC. It's a pleasure to have you join us. A great matchup against Themba Gorimbo, a bit of a short notice. But at the same time, did you kind of have Themba in the back of your mind? Because he's been saying he wanted to be the backup for this fight with Nick Diaz that still has yet to come to fruition for some time.
Yeah, for this fight, I mean, you know, I was ready for something like this because in August it didn't go, you know, the fight didn't work out. And Themba talked about that after his fight with Nico Price. So for me, it was like, okay, at least we have somebody, you know, that might jump in if something happens. Something did happen and he was down. And I'm just grateful for him giving me the opportunity to fight. And now I'm going to go there.
Were you always a little bit, oh, sorry.
No, just go there and get the work done.
Were you always a little bit skeptical about facing Nick Diaz?
The second time a little bit, but I was always like, I wanted that fight, so I was confident getting ready for it, like it's gonna happen. But always so much like, I don't know, things that you don't know what's going on. You know, a lot of drama in the you know, in the whole social media and all that. So for me, it was like, okay, let's see. I'll work through this, and we'll see whatever happens. I'll be ready for December 7th.
Well, when it comes to the unpredictability of Nick Diaz, Eamon, you guys have some experience over at TriStar with that.
Yeah, well, George has faced him before in the past, and obviously we fought Nick Diaz a couple of times with different fighters of ours. But besides Nick Diaz, you know, you have a big test with Themba tomorrow. He seems very intense. We spoke to him earlier, and in his mind, he's going in there to finish you tomorrow. And I know for us fighters at this level, it's all about mindset, you know. And I heard you speak on the press conference this week, and you had some lapse in mindset in one of your fights. What have you done to make sure that tomorrow night you're on?
Yeah, I think that's a great, you know, point. a lot of fighting is the mental side. I mean, everybody's trained, everybody's skilled in the UFC, so we got to be ready to go in there and get the job done. And I think it comes down to will for this kind of fight. I was even talking to Gilbert, like when we get to the top 5, everybody has a lot of will, so we're not testing each other's will anymore. We're going for the more technical side of the fight. A lot of studying, usually 5-rounders. Now for this kind of fight, you know, the guy that wants to jump into the top 15, it's all about will, all about, you know, I'm gonna get this guy that is a veteran and show him that I want it more than him. And my job is to, hey, show him no, that's not what you're going to do. I'm going to go there and show you all my experience and show you that I still want to be a champion, and this would never stop being my goal.
You know, sometimes for me, when I hear how hungry a fighter is, sometimes there could be a fighter who's running into a wall, and it could play against them. You know, and someone with a lot of experience can expose how much they're trying to go to finish the fight. Sometimes when you overreach in terms of like offense or trying to dominate too hard, you open a lot of doors for your opponent. And I'm wondering, is that something that you have in the back of your head that, you know what, I'm going to let him come to me aggressive and I'm going to poke holes in his game in front of everybody tomorrow night?
Yeah, definitely. I think that I have the skill set on the ground or on the stand-up to expose, you know, some of his points that you know, are not so sharp. And if he comes aggressive, that's the kind of fight I love. I am a high-paced fighter, so if we go into a battle, I think that, you know, I've been through so many. That's just going to be one more for me.
Yeah, you've been through so many wars before in the past, you know, and you've come out on top in a lot of them. And I know, obviously, like we all want to leave with the least amount of damage possible. But with a guy like Timba, it seems like both of you guys are going to bring it, and you know, it's going to be a hard-fought fight. If you could name the one thing that he has as this biggest weakness, what would it be?
I would say the lack of experience, the lack of facing guys of my caliber. So that's going to be something new for him. He can react really good, or he can struggle. So I would say that.
Yeah. One last question before you get out. Co-main event. Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Machado, Garry. These are two guys you've trained with before at Team Killcliff. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction because that's boring. So what I'm going to say is Shavkat Rakhmonov beats Ian Machado, Garry. How did he do it? Ian Machado, Garry beats Shavkat Rakhmonov. How did he do it?
Rakhmonov submits Ian Garry, and Ian wins striking decision.
All right. You heard it from a man who's felt both these guys in the gym, as well as many other great welterweights and middleweights that are at Team Killcliff. Thank you, Vicente. I always appreciate speaking with you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All the best.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Vicente Luque joining us here on the UFC 310 official weigh-in show here on Sportsnet Plus, sportsnet.ca, and YouTube. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
A lot of people stopping in.
Yeah, had a great time. So how many fighters missed weight? Only one today?
Well, are we still going? Or we're still waiting on Kai Asakura to make weight as well as... Oh, Asakura. Okay, so what did Asakura weigh in at? I did 124. Okay, so Asakura's made weight. So that main event is official. I get caught up in what's going on. Has Anthony Smith, Michael Chiesa, are we waiting on those guys?
Chiesa weighed in.
Chiesa went, okay. What do we got for Chiesa? Sorry, we were entrenched in conversation.
We had conversation,
so I'm missing out on a lot of.
We're gonna have to buy Dan, our producer, a pen and paper for the next one.
I saw that.
Have him write it down.
I saw Alexander Volkov made weight 254 and a half
next fighter
pounds.
to weigh in,
Ian Machado, Garry 171.
The light heavyweight division, former world title
and now
challenger,
we've got Anthony
and the number
Smith
13
stepping up to the scale.
Anthony
He is headlining. Headlining the prelim cards against Dominic Reyes. Two gentlemen who have both fought John Jones in the past.
Actually, he fought on the last card that we did for the live weigh-in show.
Who Anthony did?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, the one in June.
All right, Anthony Lionheart Smith. They're checking his weight right now. 207.
207
so he is off
the
by
official weight for
£1.5.
Anthony Smith.
Yeah, so
that's a miss.
We've had two weight misses thus far. Brian Battle at 175 pounds and Anthony Smith at 207.5 pounds. So
I've got some memes to make.
I think we're waiting on. We'll find out what
Randy
Michael Chiesa weighed in at, but I think we are going to have to wait and see what happens with those guys because they'll have another hour to make weight in Brian Battle at 175 and Anthony Smith at 207.5 pounds. But the opponent for Brian Battle is Randy Brown. So Randy, I'd love to get your reaction to Brian Battle missing weight by 4 pounds. I think it's probably unlikely that they let him continue to cut.
Shit, man, it's one of those things where we both knew about the fight at the same time, you know. I came in as a professional. I've never missed weight at any point in my career. I've done this walk over 15 times, you know, or more, and I made the weight. I think it's a little unprofessional. But it is what it is. You know, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I can tell from your voice also, it's probably not a very easy weight cut for you.
Nah, and it's like they knew they weren't going to make the weight. So they could have told me. They could have said something. I would have stopped and we could have made a catch weight. But they wanted me to suffer. I know the game. You know, they ain't slick. They want me to suffer. It was so I could come down and he can wrestle me. Would be a bigger body to wrestle me because they got it that I'm a big welterweight. So I know the game, but nah, you're supposed to cut the weight. 170 was a deal. Make 170, man. Be professional. Make 170.
Has he gone back?
Eamon, have you had situations where you've had an opponent miss weight on you?
Yeah, I've had an opponent miss weight 4.5 pounds one time, and I got a huge pay bump. I'm hoping that you get a huge pay bump. That's what I'm about to tell you next. I don't know if is he going to go back and try, or he's stopping and you're going to ask for more money? Or?
Here's the thing, right? The pay bump, I don't care about the pay bump because he's a newbie. He just got here, so.
You're 10 years, I think.
I'm almost 10 years. Yeah. Like I'm paid. Like I'm not worried about what his little 10% is gonna do for me. Really ain't really gonna do much. He'll take the pay cut, and then, you know, if he wins, then who cares? No one cares about that. They just want to see result.
My situation was different. It was still my first contract, so the pay bump actually really made a difference for me. So I totally get your perspective. It's the opposite of what situation I was in. But listen, like you said, you came in ready. And you prepared, and he's still going to be the same guy in there. Is it something you're considering to take the fight, or you don't want to take it?
We're going to sit down. We're going to talk. We're going to talk with my team. We're going to talk with his team, and then we'll figure it out. Because I came here to fight at the end of the day. But people don't care about anything else. They just result, win, loss. And that's a lot. He's already an 85er coming down. I'm looking at him. He's a big boy, you know. So we're just going to sit down. We talk with the team, and we'll see what's up.
I hear what you're saying because, you know, the MMA fans are great. They're like a double-edged sword. When they love you, they're amazing. When if something happens, they hate you, and they really only care about the results, like you said. So no one's gonna on Monday talk about how he missed weight and won. Let's say if he wins, and no one's gonna talk on Monday how he missed weight and you beat him. They're just gonna talk about win or lose. You know, so you have a valid point in that in terms of the win or lose, and it is about professionalism and giving you a fair chance. Because like you said, I listened to you this week that a lot of times in your career you've won 4 in a row, you've lost 1, and you've won on another tear, and like now this is another big moment.
Nobody cares. You know, I put all this work I put in. Like I didn't have to even fight this dude. I'm sure I could have waited to fight someone ranked. I opted to fight him because I like to stay busy. You got to be professional. You know what I mean? For me, I'm super underappreciated in this game. You know what I mean? And it is what it is. I'm just used to that. I know you got to be 10 times better than the other man, and I'm used to that. And I'm gonna go out there and do that every time. But in a situation like that, fuck that. That's not right. Make the weight.
So on a lighter note, I've heard you have a partnership with Meta now, and you've been doing a lot of stuff with them. So tell me about that.
Not so much a partnership. Me and them are pretty cool. We don't have anything official, you know, but we have a great relationship, you know, and I made some good connections there. And we do some cool stuff on it online, you know. So hoping we can continue to build on that.
Have you tried out the glasses yet with the cameras?
Yes, I have, and it's funny. You'll see something pretty cool for the weigh-ins.
All right, well, I like that idea. I've got a pair myself. I'm not wearing them right now, but I got them in my bag.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
And last question for you. You're going to be on the prelims on ESPN too, and I've spoken to you about this before. Your dad gets to watch some of your fights when they're televised. So is he going to be able to watch on Saturday?
This is one that he gets to see. Yeah, this is one that he gets to see, and everybody's excited. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, you know, everything goes right, and we get to work it out.
Yeah, well, we hope so as well.
Yeah.
It's always good for your dad to get a chance to watch it. Well, he's incarcerated right now. For those that don't know, so it means a lot more to you to be on you know, the prelims on ESPN.
Yeah, it's funny. People are like, "Oh, you should be on the main card. That's why you should be on the main card." But like, for me, I'm like, yo, if it's on the main card, he can't see it, you know. So yeah. I'm good. I'm good where I'm at. I'm happy that he can see it. So I'm good.
All right. Well, let's hope this fight does stay together. Brian Battle, unfortunately, missing weight 175 pounds. Randy Brown doing his job 171. Thank you so much for joining us, Randy.
No problem.
All the best for the negotiations, man.
All right, thank you, guys.
Take care.
All right. He's Randy Brown. Thank you for your live reaction to what took place earlier today. 2 fighters have missed weight. Brian Battle, 175 pounds. Anthony Smith, 207.5 pounds. I wouldn't be surprised if they allow Anthony to continue to cut weight since he's got bigger mass, only 1.5 pounds off. At Brian Battle, I would be very surprised if he makes another attempt to make the weight.
Why not, man? Why not? Let him suffer. Listen, in my opinion, I think Randy's correct in the sense that he suffered to get all the way down. And like you brought up, I was in a similar situation. And the guy that I was fighting missed weight by 4.5 pounds, but he had a whole hour left. Like, why did they show up to the weigh-in with time remaining if you're going to miss? You know what I mean? You should just use all the time to keep cutting weight. You know, I was telling you earlier that my last fight in November, I did my normal routine for weight cutting, but my bathtub ended up being smaller than expected. So instead of doing 2 shots in the bath, I had to suffer through 5 of them because the situation was I couldn't fit my entire body in there. So I had to do a much longer weight cut than I'm used to. But I suffered through, and I showed up to the weigh-ins later. I didn't show up at 8:30 to be on the scale for 9. I showed up actually one of the last ones to weigh in, and that was because I had to deal with the circumstances that I was in with the size of the bathtub. So I feel like, you know what, he should suffer the extra hour. Even if he doesn't make it, lose those other 2 pounds, because Randy Brown sacrificed a lot more.
I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, it's not really up to Randy, not up to us. It's up to the commission.
No, of course.
Yeah.
No,
So
I'm
the
just
commission
saying, like,
could
in my
say,
mindset, that's my point of view.
Of course. All right, we've
Right here in
got
the middle, brother.
Dominic Reyes joining us,
Good to see you.
coming off a win. And I've got to say, watching your last fight, I felt the same kind of relief for you that I'm sure you felt. And I'm sure a lot of the people that have supported you in this game felt that same way when you got a win in your last one. So how's your mindset changed now that you have that behind you? Because I'm sure that going into fights on a losing streak is very different than going into a fight coming off a win.
Well, I mean, when you're coming off a losing streak and you got the knife to your throat, right? You mess up again and it could be the end. But that's the name of the game. That's the game we play. Game of inches, and sometimes it doesn't go your way. But now that I'm back on the winning streak, it's like confirms that all the work I've been doing is the correct work, and I'm just could keep going forward instead of trying to look back and I need to do this or looking at everything that went wrong. So I'm just staying forward and staying positive, staying in a positive mindset. There's nothing like that wave of energy when you're on a winning streak that you could just ride it. I rode it to the title against John, right?
Yeah.
So I'm back on that wave, a different wave now, and I'm very excited, and I feel great.
We just spoke to Randy Brown. His opponent missed weight by 4 pounds. Your opponent, Anthony Smith, missed weight rather by 1.5 pounds. I would imagine he might want to make a second attempt, given that you guys fight at 205 and he has 1.5 pounds to cut. But what's your reaction to him missing weight?
Yeah, it's bullshit. Be a professional, show up and handle business. You might not be in or whatever, but this is still work. It's still business. Be a professional about your shit. Don't show up and miss weight. Like, what are you doing? Have respect. But whatever.
Did you guys find out quite with enough time, like months in advance? This wasn't put together last minute or anything like that?
Yeah, we've been
This was,
preparing.
I think, the first fight announced for this card.
The very first fight announced for this card. We've been preparing since September.
So you had plenty of time, right? So there's almost no excuses.
There's no excuses. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it wasn't a short notice. He made weight even when it was short notice, right? So come on, man. It's just blatant disrespect for me and this organization, and that pisses me off. But some people looking for advantages, looking for little sneaky things. Either that or he just doesn't care. He just doesn't care, and that's even worse for him because you don't care against me, you're gonna pay.
Yeah, talking about mindset before also, like you're coming in ready. I was listening to the interviews throughout the week, and you seem locked in. One thing I wanted to ask you, you put any thought to the outcome, or do you just want to go out there and perform?
Well, yeah, performance is everything, right? You perform. When I perform, I'm gonna win, right? But winning is everything, right? You don't win. What the hell's the point of this? I'm gonna go out there and get beat up. Yeah, for what, right? You lose half your paycheck. What good is losing here, right? Having great performances is awesome. Going out there and it's just fun. It is a great time, especially when you're doing your thing. Bah, 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 bah. But it's even more fun when you're doing your thing and you win, right? So that's I'm preparing to win. I'm not just preparing to go out here and fight. Like that's silly.
Yeah. And do you ever think of, like, let's say when a guy misses weight by so little? Sometimes when a guy misses weight by like 1.5 pounds, do you think that there's maybe a lack of focus, or maybe his mindset isn't as into it as yours is for this fight?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I have the mental edge. It's very apparent in this fight. He wants to go and break something. He's a guy that wants to just punch the wall and just let out his emotion. That's cool, man. If you're at home and you don't have, an outlet, but this is professional fighting. I'm not just a guy that you could just come out here and impose your will on because you're mad. This is everybody I fight wants to hurt me, right? And everybody wants to let out their power on me. So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna just go out there and do my thing. I mean, he's aware of what's going on. He understands that, I might end up getting hurt himself, right? Because it's not a great idea, but that's his game plan. That's what he wants to do, I'll oblige, I'll oblige. You want to come out here and be reckless? That's perfectly fine with me, I'm sharp, I'm smart, and I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah. I remember last time we spoke before your last fight, your approach was almost the opposite of his. You were coming into it with a lot of faith and gratitude, and those were things that you were really carrying with you.
So I'm continuing on that faith and gratitude, and all that, I'm just riding that wave, right? Everything that I said and have been doing, right? I almost freaking died at the beginning of the year. So it's like, okay, this is an opportunity for me. Like, I get to do this. It's not that I love to do it and I want to do it and it's how I feed my family. It's I get to do this every day. I get to wake up and come here. I get to show up and make weight, you know? Everything I do is with gratitude. And when you do things with gratitude, it makes things a lot easier. And it's coming from a really good place and you could do it easily, you know, no matter how hard it is. And that's where I'm at. I'm locked in, man. I'm very confident in my abilities. I'm very confident in my power, my speed, my strength. I'm really excited about this fight. Anthony, he's a good, tough opponent. Don't get me wrong. I do feel like his mind is in a crazy place. You know, whatever. We all have things going on in our life, but this isn't the time to punch the wall, man.
I think it says a lot about your character. You know, after that really close fight with John Jones, where a lot of people thought you should have won the title that night, I think that you might have carried a lot of resentment after that. And to be able to channel your faith and turn it into gratitude, I think speaks a lot of volume about your character. We really appreciate you joining us here, Dom, and look forward to seeing you against Anthony Smith tomorrow. Hopefully the fight sticks together, and we get to see a great fight.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for being here and the support, and God bless you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dominic. All right, that's Dominic, not the Dominator, the Devastator Reyes. I think I got that right. Right, Dominic? Devastator Reyes, right? The Devastator Reyes, okay. Everybody wants to say the Dominator because it's, you know, Dominic Cruz and it's an easier one, but he wanted to be different with the Devastator.
People playing checkers, not chess.
Yeah, exactly. I like it. Well, it was great speaking with him. I mean, it's tough to see these guys that missed weight and their opponents, you know, just being really very vocal about their disappointment about it.
Yeah, because actually, I think when we did the last weigh-in show, I think he had made weight in that fight he had taken on short notice. I think that's what Dominic was referring to. Right?
Yeah,
so
right.
like
Yeah, he took that on like 2 or 3 weeks' notice, the one against Roman Dolidze.
Yeah, against Roman Dolidze, and he actually made weight successfully. So it's kind of weird that he didn't make weight this time around. It's only 1.5 pounds. I feel like if he takes an hour, he can maybe make it. But he thinks that there's maybe a chink in his armor in terms of mindset. So I'm excited to see how.
And do you agree with that?
Not necessarily, because like I like also Randy Brown's take. It's two sides of the same coin. Either the guy is planning on it to take it as an advantage, or the guy is weak mentally. So it's hard to know the difference. You won't know until Saturday on fight night. But I think there's some crazy statistic that the guys who miss weight win 72% of the time or something like that. So
I think it changes year over year.
Yeah. I know it changes, but they still have the advantage. They win more often than they lose, right? Because they get less dehydrated. It's much easier to put the water back on, get the fluid to your brain and things like that. Your decision making is better. So it's an awkward one.
You know what, man? For me, I think you take a point. I think if somebody misses weight, they lose a point going into the fight. Yeah. Honestly, I think that's the best way to level the playing field in these situations.
I think it's a great thing because that way it makes it much harder for them to fight, and you're forcing the action from that guy who missed weight now. Like he feels a repercussion. Like you know, Randy Brown said something that was very interesting too, is that Brian Battle isn't in his like 5th contract in the UFC, so taking 20% or 10% or whatever they're gonna give Randy Brown, it doesn't move the needle for Randy, right? But if you threaten them with, okay, now you're down 1 point on the scorecards, now it's like, oh wait, I'm already ahead. And the guy has to come out and fight, you know. So it kind of puts them at a disadvantage.
So an update from our producer, Dan Fernandez, doing great work here on the ground at the UFC Apex. We are not going to see Brian Battle weigh in again. However, Anthony Smith will make another attempt. So we're going to wait on Anthony, who weighed 207.5 pounds. So Brian Battle has officially missed weight. I guess they're going to have to negotiate what's going to happen for that.
He missed weight by 5 or 4 pounds, right?
4 pounds.
By 4 pounds, right? I mean, he should go back. Try to at least get to 172. Yeah. Save face. Something.
Again, but the commission might not.
I know the commission. Yeah. I didn't know they get involved in that.
Yeah, no. If the commission says that it would be unhealthy for you to cut further weight, they'll tell you to stop.
So how could it be unhealthy for you to cut further weight, but you're able to fight tomorrow?
I don't know. I don't make these regulations.
Yeah, that's an odd regulation for me. Like I don't understand the idea behind it.
You take a point.
You take a point.
I think
everybody happy.
I think if the commissions, you know, every year they have an Association of Boxing Commissions have a meeting where they discuss rule changes. I really think that would be something that would curb people missing weight. I mean, listen, the commission are still overseeing whether or not people are going to be making dangerous cuts. Like we still need to be responsible and make sure people aren't cutting more weight than is healthy, where it can be really detrimental to their long-term health. But at the same time, you know, there's a big disadvantage now for Randy Brown going to this fight. Like you heard Randy's voice. Usually, one telltale sign of a hard weight cut is that your voice is not loud and booming. And you know, he's a big guy. We saw Vicente Luque standing next to us. He's not that much taller than us. Randy Brown's a big dude for 170 pounds.
Yeah, it's for sure a hard cut for Randy Brown to make it all the way down. And like he said throughout the week in his career, he's been on a lot of runs, and in times of his moment to shine, to like really get to the next level, he's come up short a couple of times. And this was another good chance for him because Bryan Battle has such a huge name now, especially with his win after in France, and what he said on the mic is extremely popular. So this could have really cemented Randy Brown more into the mainstream. He's more like in the background. Like the good fighters, they know who he is. Everyone sees his skill set, and we all respect him. Of course, he's a really good, tough fighter. But in terms of like the mainstream fans who don't necessarily watch the fights all the time, you know, not the hardcore fans. Obviously, the hardcore fans know exactly who he is. But this was one of those things that where he was going to get shown to the world again, you know. So hopefully things work out and he still gets the chance.
Yeah, and I spoke to Anthony Smith the other day, and he was really a dark mindset. And I had found out, I guess he had posted on Instagram, one of his longtime coaches passed away this past Wednesday.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Sorry, I missed that.
Or maybe it was a week prior. So he's carrying a lot of mental weight coming into this fight.
Oh, that may have played a role why he didn't make weight, but I like to hear the fact that he's going to go back and try again. You know, so there is some resolve there. Whereas for Bryan Battle, he missed weight by 4 pounds. Is he doing it tactically, or did he give up mentally? There's only one way to find out, and it's to see the fight tomorrow night.
Absolutely. Well, let's set the table for UFC 310 in the main event. Both Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Asakura weighing in at 124.5 pounds. That main event is official. The co-main event, 5 rounds. Shavkat, Rakhmonov, Machado, Garry both weighing 171 pounds for their 5-round fight that will determine the next challenger for the welterweight championship of the world. And I saw Belal Muhammad, the champion, last night at the World MMA Awards. And Belal is just got cleared to start training again. So
how's his little toe doing?
Yeah,
his little toe's okay.
He's barely walking around, dude.
It's just funny. It's funny.
But he said yesterday on the red carpet that he had talked to the doctors about potentially amputating his toe so that he could compete tomorrow.
No way.
That was like an option that
he's
he had
hardcore.
put on the table.
He's getting too hardcore for me.
Yeah, and he said like he is open to fighting either of the guys. Shavkat or Machado Garry in March, right when Ramadan is starting, and he observes Ramadan. I mean, Belal Muhammad is not the kind of guy that's making excuses.
But there's a really off balancing. If you cut off one of your toes, don't you like lose a lot of your?
I've never cut off
equilibrium?
one of my toes, so
but I've heard of other people that like they've lost a toe, and that they've cut it out on purpose, but it messes up your equilibrium. I don't know how that would affect his strength.
Yeah,
listen, guys, when he said that he has boxing like Alvarez, we all made fun of him.
Yeah,
all of us. We thought he's getting crazy. No, he's becoming an egomaniac. And then he went out there and he did what he did to Leon.
Yeah.
You know what? He boxes like Alvarez. He boxed him up so nice. I was blown away by that performance. That was one of those performances we all have to tip our hat to Belal Muhammad, because he did things we didn't expect him to be able to do and implement his game plan. Like, he made some mistakes here and there. Like, he got his back taken a couple times for sure. Listen, no performance is always 100% perfect, but he did blow us away in terms of expectation. Like, he's off the charts right now.
Yeah, I oftentimes feel for Belal because it seems like he gets a lot of heat. But he's done everything right in his career. Takes fights whenever he's asked, gets on a big win streak, keeps improving. He started very late in the game. I think it was 26, 27 when he really started taking it seriously. Yeah. And, you know, like yourself, a guy that has aged really well in the game, a guy that is making gains at a time where most people start to lose a lot of their not necessarily their skills, but a lot of their timing and a lot of the intangibles. Yeah, exactly, that make them great. Yeah. So I think it's a real testament to him that he's been able to become champion. In fact, he made history, the oldest male title challenger, actually the oldest title challenger to unseat a champion.
Oh, wow.
Anywhere from 170 pounds and below.
Oh, that's incredible. And I want to ask you, this is a good question for you. When did he join, after which fight did he join Khabib's team?
It was, I think, his last 2 fights, 2 or 3, he's been cross-training with Khabib. So he trains mostly in Chicago with Lewis Taylor's his head coach. And team Valley Flow Striking, I believe it's called, Mike Valley. So that's his main team, and then he will go to Dubai and train with Khabib and his team as well. And I think he's done that the last 2 or 3 fights.
Yeah, and we've seen a tremendous jump in terms of his ability to mix the striking with the wrestling. I mean, like, you know, I'm not trying to say like he was never good without Khabib or whatever. He was always good. He was always good. But you see that sometimes when you get help from outside of your team, you get these minor little adjustments that people really notice, you know, and your level jumps, even with just minor changes. So it's great to see how like he's able to spread his wings and that his team is okay with him cross-training. Because not a lot of teams let you cross-train. Some guys, they want to hold you with an iron grip, you know, and they don't want to let you go. But if you see your fighter has a lot of potential and you know that it can help him in his career, it's nice to see coaches with a lot of experience allow them to do that.
100%. And I think that compared to your teammate, George St. Pierre, who's, of course, a longtime champion at welterweight, I think Bilal has done a great job of adapting wrestling to mixed martial arts. Like, he's not a guy that comes from a very strong wrestling background.
Yeah.
I think he might have wrestled a little bit in high school or something like that. But the way that he's been able to utilize wrestling and adapt it to MMA, I think, is as good as anybody, aside from maybe George, who's the best to ever do it in that sense.
And I don't mean this as a knock or whatever, but I think he out-wrestled Leon better than Usman did.
I would agree.
You know,
100%.
The way he did it with the striking, to mix in the wrestling and the shots, and the way he got on his back, and the way he took him down, it was just total domination, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. We've got another guest joining us right now, Michael
Hey.
Chiesa.
Hey, what's up?
Always love seeing you, sir.
It's good to be here.
Great fight for you coming up. Two veterans, Max Griffin, yourself. How are you feeling coming into this one?
I feel good. It feels good to just roll into another fight. You know, I can't remember the last time I fought twice in 4 months, so it just feels good to just, given the health of my body, to just be rolling into some fights, and getting to fight on my 37th birthday is going to be pretty interesting, so I'm pretty excited.
First off, happy birthday to you.
Congratulations.
On that one. So, I mean, you've wanted to be active, but you've had all these different injuries along the way that have stopped you from being in action. So what has been the key for you feeling so good at this stage in your career?
Just listening to my body. I don't have a problem pushing myself, but I think that's also the problem, is I push myself too hard sometimes. So really it's about listening to my body, and it's like listening to the peers around me. You know, like I get to be around guys like Michael Bisping, Daniel Cormier, guys like that all the time. And so taking advice from them, because those guys fought late into their, you know, late 30s. I almost said 70s. Forgive me, I haven't had any carbs yet.
Don't
you know,
worry about
but you know, they fought late into their 30s, into their 40s. So it's like I like to take a lot of advice from them, apply it to my training. So it's all about listening to my body. And as Bisping says, it takes a confident fighter to take a rest day. So don't be afraid to take a rest day if your body's not feeling up for it. So just listening to my peers and applying it to my training.
I like to tell myself I'm 37 years young when I'm preparing for a fight, not 37 years old. It kind of helps with the mindset. You know, I feel great. And you know what? It takes a long time to get good in MMA. Like, a lot of people, they underestimate like how hard it is to master 3 elements of a sport. Like, if you're just boxing, you only got to worry about your hands, right?
Yeah.
And then but MMA, you got to worry about the striking, you got to worry about the wrestling, and you got to worry about the jiu-jitsu. So it takes a lot of years to get good. So I don't see it as a bad thing that you're 37. Actually, in my opinion, you might be entering your prime. One thing that I really liked, I heard you talk about in one of your interviews recently, is that you feel like you've made it in life. You've won in life. And I just want you to extrapolate on that and say, like, how does that help you going into this fight?
It just kind of takes a lot of the pressure off. You know, I think that a lot of guys, when you're in your 20s, you know, and you're really in the chase, you're not even in your prime, you're just so focused on being a fighter. But you have to come to terms with the reality of life, that at some point, youth runs out, you know. And for me, this is everything I've wanted in life, is everything revolving around mixed martial arts. I want to wake up and just have everything I do in life revolve around this sport, and getting the opportunities to work as an analyst, and now just making that push to get to commentary. It's like a liberating feeling, where it's like I don't have to go look for the next, like, what am I going to do when I'm done competing? And the best part about it is I get to keep my identity intact. And I think that's something that a lot of athletes, not just fighters, but athletes, like guys in the NFL, struggle with, like, oh, I'm not an NFL player anymore, I have to go find something else. And it's like, for me, I get to be a fighter for the rest of my life, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be doing what you guys are doing. I'm going to have a microphone in my hand. I'm going to have my headset on, and that's all I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So when the gloves get hung up way far down the road, I'm always going to be me. I get to be a fighter for the rest of my life. And I think that is just something that's very liberating, and just takes so much pressure off my shoulders, where it's like, I don't even have to think about, like, what's plan B? I get to stick with plan A for the rest of my life. So I count my blessings every day. Thank God I get to be a fighter for the rest of my life.
It's definitely a rarity in our sport, right? Like, you know, a lot of, like you said, you brought up NFL players, but some of them get to be like broadcasters and stuff, but only a few.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that you're already planning your retirement throughout your career, and you haven't lost any steam yet. Like, you're still winning fights. And I want to ask you, like, for this fight tomorrow, like, what is something that you think is like a big weakness in this game, or what are you looking to take advantage of tomorrow?
I think that for Max, I think that the advantage I think the thing I want to take advantage of the most is he just thinks that I can only do one thing. I think that he thinks I'm only good in one specific area, and I've only been training mixed martial arts for 16 years. That, you know, like, only 16 years, you think I only know how to grapple. Like, I can't tell you how much banter I get from my teammates. Like, when are you going to just go out there and let it fly? Like, you know, like, I have great striking. I just always choose to stick with plan A. So I think that's the weakness that is going to be presented for me to take advantage of, is just the fact that he thinks I'm a one-trick pony. And I give him his credit. I've seen him adjust his game plan, like when he fought Zaleem. really wrestling heavy approach. A lot of his other fights, sprawl and brawl. Tim Means, we saw him use a lot of angles and land that right hand. You know, you see me up here juking and jiving.
He might have a plan like that for you then.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's like, that's the weakness that I'm going to exploit, is I'm going to show that I'm a very well-rounded mixed martial artist, and I think it's going to catch him off guard.
We were just talking about Bilal Muhammad, how he was saying before his last fight he had hands like Alvarez. Do you have hands like Alvarez? Are we going to be surprised tomorrow?
I'd say I got hands like Pacquiao, because he's more of a southpaw, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
So I'm hoping you get to surprise him tomorrow with some of those things. Aaron, did you have anything?
Yeah, one last thing. I asked Chase Hooper this. Yeah. The UFC is potentially coming to Seattle in February. Is that a card you'd like to be on if that's going to be coming to fruition? Because you've represented the Pacific Northwest very proudly throughout your career.
I don't want to look too far ahead, and my managers told me this, my coaches told me this, my teammates are like, focus on the task at hand. So I put it on the back burner. Focus very much on fighting on my birthday. Focus on him he's a tough opponent. Let's just be honest here. Max Griffin's only been finished by one guy. And that one guy fought for a world title 3 times. And that's Colby Covington. So it's like, it would be a big mistake for me to be counting my chickens before they hatch. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to get through Max, then I'm going to fight in Seattle. Like, no. Let's focus on the task at hand. I got 15 minutes of war tomorrow. I got to be ready. I got to be very, very mentally present for this fight. But if I can walk out of there unscathed, I'm going to take a week off, get back to it. I don't know if they have a main event for Seattle. Is there a name in mind? Yes.
Oh, nice.
Is there a slot on the card in mind? Yes. So, but I just got to focus on the task at hand. But I would love nothing more than to make that walk at Climate Pledge Arena. That would be, I want to get that one back. That's where I had my first pro loss. So I would love to go back to Seattle. I would love to fight. And maybe they don't have a spot in that main event. So I know I don't have that number next to my name, but I have a name in mind I think that would validate me getting that position on that card. But either way, it's all about my health, how I feel. That'd be 3 fights in 6 months, 7 months. Pretty busy schedule, so we'll see what happens.
A nice check too. A few checks.
A couple nice checks, you know. Yeah, it wouldn't be too bad.
All right, Mike, always a pleasure catching up with you. You've been doing great work as well, doing commentary for BFL in Vancouver and getting some reps doing that. So we're looking forward to your career that's happening right now, your fight career, and then I think after we're going to see you as a color commentator in the UFC. You do a great job.
Congratulations on the nomination for the MMA Awards again. You're one of the best, man. You're doing very good.
I beat him again. And I beat him 3 years in a row. I beat him 3 years in a row.
All right, Helwani, let's calm down. Let's calm down.
Yeah, love you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, the World MMA Awards were yesterday, and next week we have our annual Sportsnet banquet where I'm nominated for MMA Journalist of the Year. But Mikey Johnson, our web editor, has done a great job this year. I think it's probably his to lose.
Yeah, well, I'm undefeated in that thing.
I think Dan was laughing. I might have gotten a laugh out of Dan. That's all I'm looking for, is to make Dan smile.
Ariel, big shout out to Ariel Hawani. Congratulations on
fellow Canadian, doing big things
years
as always.
In a row, I think
15
years in a row. Excuse me, I can't keep count of all these wins.
Yeah,
but hopefully
he's keeping that chair warm for me though. One day.
Hopefully you'll take him over one day.
That would be nice.
Yeah, a couple of Canadian guys at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Mike Bond has been nominated, so
Oh yeah.
I don't think he was yesterday, but he has been in the past. Another Canadian doing great things in our space. So
listen, Canada's taking over MMA.
All right. I hope that all the guys at TriStar right now that are going to be we're going to be talking to in a couple of years, right?
Well, we finally turned things around. We had a bad showing in January in Toronto. A lot of the males lost that night. Only the women won. And then this last one in Edmonton, we won. A lot more guys won. So things are turning around for us.
And I don't know if you saw this fight 2 nights ago. Jamie Siraj from Vancouver.
I didn't see the fight, but I heard that he won.
It was an unbelievable fight. He fought here in Las Vegas at Tough Enough. I think we're going to see Jamie Siraj in the UFC very soon. This guy is just an absolute dog.
Yeah, he's a beast. I've been training with him since he's 18 years old.
Oh, you know Jamie? Okay.
Yeah. He used to come to stay at the TriStar dorms. When I was staying at TriStar dorms, he was coming to TriStar dorms. And actually, he trains with ex-teammate of ours too, a Cajun, who's retired now.
Yeah.
But he actually owns a TriStar Vancouver.
Right.
So they train together still. And yeah, I think there's a lot of good chances he can either go straight to the UFC or to a Contender Series style opportunity, or maybe an Ultimate Fighter. I don't know if they're having any seasons soon.
Well, he was supposed to be
he should get his shot.
Yeah, he was supposed to be on one of the recent seasons of the Ultimate Fighter. I'm not sure what happened, but his name was being bandied about for that one. I don't think that it's his weight class next time, but I think that he should just get signed, honestly. That performance that he showed was a 5-round performance. He won with 24 seconds left in the 5th round. Just a gutsy performance by him. But let's get back to the task at hand. We are waiting on Anthony Smith, 207.5 pounds the last time he stepped on the scale. He has an extra hour to get on the scale until 11 a.m. local time here in Las Vegas. So we are waiting on him to make weight. Brian Battle will not be making another attempt, 175 pounds for him. We'll see if his fight with Randy Brown stays together. We'll wait for an announcement on that one, and we'll wait to see if Anthony Smith can cut that last pound and a half as we continue the UFC 310 live weigh-in show here at the UFC Apex. Let's talk about the main card here. We'll start off with the first fight on the main card. Doo Ho Choi, a Hall of Famer from his fight with Cub Swanson at UFC 206 in Toronto against Nate Landwehr. I think this is just a tailor-made fight for action.
This is a great fight to open the card. It's really going to set the tone. I mean, the main card. It's going to set the tone for the main card. These guys have both said in interviews this week, and they've both done it many times in the past, where they want to go out there and have a war. And even Nate was saying how he would rather lose by getting KO'd. He can accept that as long as he went out there and he threw as much as he could, and he tried his best. So I'm expecting him to bring the action. And obviously, Superboy is saying the same thing. So, and they both have KO power. They both are very gritty. And it's just a great way to set the tone for the pay-per-view.
On the prelims, you've got a lot of people have asked about this because you've got Movsar Evloev undefeated, Aljamain Sterling, former champion. Like, that fight's a featherweight fight, and you've got 2 featherweight fights on the main card with stakes that aren't quite as high as that. That said, you get more eyeballs, I think, when you're on the prelims. Sometimes these people are watching kind of at home on ESPN or Sportsnet 360 in Canada. What do you think of that when you have these 2 fighters that really a fight that has a lot bigger stakes being on the prelims, whereas those 2 fights are on the main card? Do you think that that's I personally think it's by design because they want people to watch as much of the card as possible?
Yeah, I don't know how it really works, how they decide, but in the end, for the fighters, they get paid the same regardless, unless you're making pay-per-view points for being the main event. But anybody else on the card doesn't really make a difference. And if you listen to Movsar and Aljamain, it doesn't bother them. In the end, you're going to fight that same guy in the same building, the same way you're going to fight him.
It seems to bother Aljamain, but everything seems to bug Aljamain.
Yeah,
sometimes. I think he uses it, honestly, as like bulletin, like locker room material.
You're right. Maybe it does bother. Yeah, I guess it does bother
bulletin
him.
Board material.
Because he was a champion, right? So he did say that. But I don't know why. I would love an explanation of how they make these decisions, but maybe they'll get more views out of Aljamain in ESPN, because we don't know the back numbers, like what's happening backstage, not backstage, but like what are the numbers? If Aljo fights on this card, do we get more people to tune in? Or if he fights on the main card, do we get more people to tune in? I don't know.
I've asked Dana White about it, and he kind of explained it to me. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I'll have to go back and watch that interview because I asked him about that. I was very interested in why certain fights are here, certain fights are on the main card.
Are more people in Brazil or wherever more interested in paying pay-per-views to see Kron? Like maybe that's maybe they have the stats. Maybe they're like, listen, when Kron fights, we get this many pay-per-views around the world, and when Aljo fights, we only get this many. So let's put Kron on the pay-per-view to push our numbers, because really at the end of the day, it's all about making money. So if you're going to watch this and you're from Canada, you watch it on Sportsnet. Okay, you buy pay-per-view through Sportsnet. Don't buy it through Fight Pass. Buy it through Sportsnet. That's right, boss?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you look at, again, you got Doo Ho Choi on the main card and Kai Asakura on the main card. If you look at the timing, 10 p.m. Eastern start for the main card. That means that in Korea, it's probably 10, 11 a.m. the next day. If they make it too early in the card, then people can't watch Doo Ho Choi in South Korea. So maybe they're looking at global, TV
numbers.
ratings and numbers.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with how could they maximize the viewership. Because really all it's about is, increasing the profits, man. It's a business. We're kind of in the entertainment business in a way, too. So they got to stack these days because we're such an international sport. And I even think, like, we're going to have more translators than ever before in history for this one. I think we're going to
it's more broadcast languages. There's a Japanese broadcast, along with, I believe, the Spanish broadcast, the English broadcast, and the Portuguese broadcast.
Right. So they got to hit all numbers in all of these regions, right? So they got to maximize that. And I think that if you're in Canada, you buy it on Sportsnet.
Absolutely. Buy it on Sportsnet Plus. It's tomorrow night, in case you didn't realize that's when it is. Let's talk a little bit about Cyril Gane and Alexander Volkov, 2 heavyweights that fought before 5 rounds at the Apex. Do you think that there's going to be a marked difference in how this fight goes because it's A, 3 rounds, and B, in front of a big crowd?
I think Volkov is going to come to bring something different. I expect something different from him because he lost it, right? So if he has to go back, watch that tape, and figure out what were his shortcomings in the fight, because he had good moments, right? But he ended up losing. So if he can close those gaps and make a change, I expect him to do it. For his opponent, I think he's coming in with the same plan. I think it's going to be same as usual. I heard him talk in his interviews. He's not making much of a difference for this fight. Sorry, we have someone coming in. Oh, John, you coming in?
All right. Now joined by the 2024 winner of Announcer of the Year at last night's World MMA Awards, the one and only John Anik.
Thank you, Brad. It's good to be with you guys. How are we doing? You guys are keeping the lights on for us.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Well, we're waiting on Anthony Smith, as you are, to announce it. But this is a big card, UFC 310. How do you prepare for a guy like Kai Asakura making his UFC debut in a championship fight when you're looking at your commentary duties?
Well, certainly the fighter meeting is the foremost thing for us, just getting to sit down with him. And I think any of us who have crossed his wake this week understand how much self-belief resides within this man. But I will say, in the 10-year history of the Anik and Florian podcast, this is the first time at a championship fight where Ken Flo has a preconceived notion as to who he's going to pick in the fight. And then he watched the film on Kai, and he has pivoted off of Pantoja. He believes Kai is going to win the fight. And when I think about Pantoja and his relentlessness and his ability to push through that wall and having never been finished, he's now fighting a guy, at least in terms of my study, who has the long-range weaponry to actually put him away. So I came in sort of wondering, like, why is this guy getting a championship opportunity in his UFC debut? And now I am acutely aware as to why.
Is Florian joining you next? I mean, Bitcoin's over $100,000. Does he need to bother joining you next week, or is he good?
You know,
he's riding off into the sunset at this point, let me tell you.
Insisted that I buy this Bitcoin stuff and it would dip, and he'd be like, hey, man, you know, I'm not trying to get in the way of your finances, but maybe you should dive back in. So thank you, Ken Flo.
Talking about the Asakura fight, what do you think about him making flyweight now? Do you think that's going to affect his, because he's been winning these last few fights all at bantamweight, and he hasn't been in flyweight in a while. You think it could make a difference? In my opinion, we might see a big difference tomorrow than what we've seen in his last couple of performances.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger issue could just be the quality of the opponent. But I think for Kai, even though he's bullish on his ability to compete at 125 pounds, you don't really know until you know. But I think if the scale is any indicator, I think you'd all agree he looked pretty good today, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think long-term is the bigger question for me. When we would talk about Khamzat Chimaev making 170 pounds, and there were times he actually did that with relative ease, but can he make that weight and consistently defend the championship at that weight? So I think that is a bigger question for Kai Asakura. But
because I think also like Robert Whittaker used to fight at 170 and he did better at 185, right? So like, you know, that's my question mark on this fight, because like you said, Pantoja can break through that wall in terms of taking damage and going through into deep waters in the fight, and I have a feeling that maybe making flyweight might be hard for him, for Kai. So
yeah,
pass through that wall himself.
Yeah, no, I absolutely think that that's fair, and I also think divisionally, when you look at flyweight, it's certainly, and you can speak to this, a little bit of an easier ascension, right, at 125 pounds. When you think about all the depth at 35, I mean, when would this type of opportunity materialize for Kai Asakura? How many wings do you need to string together? And probably would be an underdog in a lot of those fights. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, 1 for 1, obviously, in the UFC making the number. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Last time someone tried to do this was TJ Dillashaw, and he really didn't look good against Henry Cejudo when he cut down from 35 to 25 to try to fight him.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And TJ Dillashaw obviously believes that was the gravest mistake of his career. But Kai has definitely injected sort of life into this pay-per-view week. I've liked sort of the willingness and the desire that he has to connect with the American fans and to speak English. And we'll see what happens. You know, Pantoja, though, to me, I just have to say, like Nate Landwehr said something in our fighter meeting about downshifting in a fight, right? The willingness of some fighter, like me on the treadmill this morning, for example, right? The going gets tough. I downshift, right? I am not pushing through that wall, right? And Nate Landwehr's a guy, I think, in those situations in fights when maybe it's a question of cardiovascular abandonment, he's able to not downshift and stay in that moment. And that's the thing about Pantoja, is that he ain't gonna downshift, you know? So you kind of have to separate him from consciousness. I don't know that playing the long game with this guy is going to be any sort of picnic. So it's a fascinating championship fight.
Yeah, of course. I want to ask you just on a different fight, the Randy Brown situation. What do you think? Have you heard anything? Is the fight going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Do you feel like, is it a tactic by Brian Battle, or do you think that he just couldn't make the weight?
So I did just speak to Randy Brown backstage, and he was sort of bemoaning the fact that he wasn't informed of some things earlier. I don't have any sort of information for you, but based upon what I saw backstage and the doctor observing Brian Battle, I'm not sure he's going to fight. He weighed in 175 pounds, as I'm sure you guys documented here. I think Randy's hopeful that somehow, some way, the fight will stay. But yeah, I mean, even half an hour, 45 minutes after weighing in, he was walking gingerly back there. So I think we might be down to 13 fights. We'll see.
All right, I guess we'll have to see how that plays out. And I know Anthony Smith, we're waiting on him to make weight. Last one for you, co-main event, Shavkat Rakhmonov, Ian Machado, Garry. I know you're good friends with Bilal Muhammad, the champion, and he's going to have to fight one of these guys that will still be undefeated after tomorrow night. And I know that Ian mentioned at the press conference yesterday, this is the best combined record of 2 undefeated fighters to face one another in UFC history. I think, you know, it's a bummer that Bilal fell off this fight. But, I mean, Ian Machado Garry is no longer the future. He is the present, because it's a present for all of us to get to watch two undefeated fighters like this get to face each other at this stage of their career.
It really is a dream matchup, and both of these guys are the real article. They're great human beings. They're great fighters. They do all the right things, right? And in terms of Ian Machado Garry, and he's a plus 300 underdog this weekend, and I think that number is more bloated than it needs to be. But even if this fan base hasn't responded to him in kind, and maybe if they're in some part put off by his disposition, just know that this man is so married to the game and leaving no stone unturned in terms of the preparation. So for me, always fighter first. What are you trying to respect the athlete for? Because he leads the league in work ethic, right? So for me, it's like, that's what I focus on when it comes to Ian Machado Garry. And I think if he fights Shavkat Rakhmonov 10 times, I think it's a competitive series. So we'll see what happens, you know. Strength of schedule, definitely a lean to Ian Machado Garry for me. You know, I think you look at the Michael Venom Page fight, right? And a lot of people think, oh, yeah, Shavkat's just going to walk through MVP. Okay, we'll do it, because MVP doesn't seem like the easiest guy to fight. So yeah, I'm excited.
I find it weird that he is plus 300, because he is a tactician also. You know, and I know, like, some people make fun of him because, oh, yeah, he beats guys, but he doesn't always get bloodied up. But it's not really martial arts anyway, right? The whole point is to hit the guy without getting hit. The best boxers in the world. Like, this is what I find it weird about MMA fans compared to boxing fans. Yeah. It's like the greatest boxers, they're all incredibly good at defense. Right, Muhammad Ali is a great defensive fighter. Mayweather, great defensive fighter. You know, so many of the greats are so skilled at not taking damage, but dishing out damage over time. And you see it happen. Well, boxing, they have 12 rounds. So do you see, or like you said, downshifting before. I thought you brought up a great point with the downshifting. You see it more often in boxing because they have so many rounds, but they're shorter time, but many rounds. You'll see a guy give up a couple of the first few rounds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, even what's the teammate? Mayweather's teammate, the short guy. He knocks everyone out. Gervonta Davis. So many times he's losing the first 3-4 rounds and knocks. Yeah, Floyd too, right? So I just feel like eventually sorry, I stepped on you.
No, you're good.
Eventually, over time, MMA fans are gonna realize what some of these fighters are doing when they're being a little bit more tactical to beat some of these better guys who might have better physical attributes. Like, in my opinion, I think MVP is much faster and more physically gifted than an Ian, but Ian outplayed him that night.
Right. Ian Machado Garry was knocked down by Song Kanan. It was sort of the most adversarial moment of his UFC career to date. And I look at the way he responded to that adversity, and I think that's a feather in Ian's cap going forward. Not unlike the Pantoja Asakura fight, I think the issue might just be the opponent, right? And Shavkat Rakhmonov's versatility as a finisher, I think, is really the key for me. And Bilal Muhammad is one of my best friends in the world. Kamaru Usman is a guy who is near and dear to my heart. But neither one of those guys in their careers, at least to this point in time, has developed like a signature choke, right? Despite all of the ground control, despite all of the time that, in theory, they do spend on the canvas. And I know they are different stylists on the ground, right? But position over submission, or however you want to describe it, Shavkat Rakhmonov, he is so subtle and nuanced in his ability to find a finish that I think Ian needs to be really careful. But Ian Machado Garry, to your point, is an absolute tactician. And, you know, he's getting better, not worse, with every passing training camp. So.
First time Ian Machado Garry will be an underdog in his professional career. Feel free to use that tomorrow night, as we always love watching you on the broadcast as UFC.
You know, he was also nominated last night.
Pay-per-view of the year.
He's just dropping gems.
Well, right. I mean, you guys are asking me about Randy Brown and Brian Battle. I'm about to say, what does AB have for you on that? Because I got nothing.
Well, I mean, the fight might not be happening, so don't worry about it.
Well, hey, I mean, I've already prepped those guys, so, you know. The haze in the bar.
That's the worst part, eh? When you do all this preparation and then the fights just don't come together. And there are times where you lose 2-3 fights, and I'm sure that probably murders you a little bit inside, and you just have to move forward.
It does feel like Brian Battle, though, and I hate to speculate, but I will, that he must have been dealing with some sort of circumstance, because he really is a professional, and you know, he just looked pretty defeated and deflated backstage. So I'm hoping that everything's okay with him, because that was a pronounced miss, and I think surprising to a lot of us.
It's weird because Randy, when we interviewed Randy here before, he said that they should have told me earlier. So I was wondering if maybe they knew the day before, a couple of days. Because it was weird, because when we did the last UFC live weigh-in show, there was an issue with Brian Ortega's weight. Remember, there was a little controversy, but he wasn't feeling good the whole time, and then they changed the weight class, and there was all these last-minute changes, and then Danige jumps in 4 hours before, like a whole thing. But you know, it's interesting. So I'm wondering if they knew about it a couple days ago or not.
Yeah, well, I'd imagine so, and it's interesting when I look at the fight card, right? Because I think about this from a live production standpoint, and I was just backstage with our producer Lappy LaPlante as they were discussing Randy Brown and Brian Battle and the implications for us, right? Changes up all of our television formats, but this is the first fight on this middle batch of prelims, so might actually be kind of clean, and might get Chris Weidman potentially onto ESPN2 here in the United States.
I think you mean
America.
Sportsnet Plus.
Sportsnet.
And Sportsnet
Plus,
360.
yes. Sorry, of course.
Yes, thank you for that.
Sorry.
I wanted
John.
to ask you,
Love
John,
my
before you
friends. Yeah,
left.
they're going to kick me out
What
of
do
here.
you think of
now,
all my
I guess.
memes?
I was going to say, look at these guys. I mean,
This
is amazing.
I'm
I
trying to
mean,
promote the
this
show
is-
over
this
here,
is
you
a
know,
big
guerrilla
deal,
marketing,
you
right?
know?
Yeah.
You guys have tremendous traction. These are unbelievable.
Yeah, look at this one. I think this one really captured
Look, it is.
my Clay Guida.
It's amazing.
Where's your brother? Is your brother here?
He is here, yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah,
met
let's
him earlier.
bring Jason in for a second.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to know, he's filming. He's not
Oh,
here.
he's
at the
not here.
weigh-in
Okay.
show. He's actually filming content for a Canadian company, Oddshark, right now. Live.
Wow, good for him. All right.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
Podcast now, too, I see.
Thank you for joining us. I
Thanks
know
for having
Anthony
us,
Smith
man.
might be
Always a
coming up
pleasure.
any
Nice
second
to
now. We've kept you for too long. We appreciate your time.
Anytime.
All
Thank
right,
you, boys.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's John Anik, the winner of last night's World MMA Awards, Announcer of the Year. And in my opinion, probably should win it every year. He's the best play-by-play guy in the
Yeah, no,
biz.
he's incredible, man. I think he does a really good job. He's always well prepared. He does his background
it's an
on everybody.
understatement.
And I feel like when he's on the commentary team, and there's never dead air. I feel like a lot of times when there's other guys, there's a lot of quiet times during the fights, whereas John is always able to get the guys to keep chatting. He brings it out of them almost, like, you know, like they love talking to him. Like, even I found it super easy to talk to the
Yeah,
guy.
oh, John is the best. I mean, John can sit and talk to you for hours, and he's just such a well of knowledge, and like you said, so prepared. So it's an honor to have him join us here
Yeah.
as we wait for the final domino to fall here at the UFC 310 official weigh-ins. Anthony Smith, former title challenger, who's facing a fellow title challenger in his own right, in Dominic Reyes. Both guys nearly beat John Jones because you had Anthony Smith take that illegal shot.
Yeah.
He didn't have to continue, decided to continue even though he took a knee as a grounded opponent. Continued and could have become the champion if he wanted to. If he wanted John to be disqualified,
Yeah,
that
it
probably
could've been,
is what would have happened.
Aljo style.
And then Dominic Reyes, who fought tooth and nail against John Jones in the fight that a lot of people thought that he won in Houston in early 2020.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And now he's just talking about how are they going to shift the card around, because if maybe the Randy Brown fight doesn't happen with Brian Battle, what are they going to do? You know, are they going to push one of these fights off, or are they going to put Aljo now on the main card, move some things around? Sometimes you never know how they shuffle.
Absolutely, and you know, it seems like we got a good bird's eye view from him in the back that Brian Battle not doing well. So hopefully he ends up feeling better. It seems like this fight might fall off, but at the same time, we don't really know.
Do you think Dan Ige is going to suit up and fight Randy Brown?
Yeah, 170 pounds? I think
Might be.
might
I
be a
mean,
bit
he
of
doesn't have to cut weight.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a height advantage in that one. So I don't think that's probably in the cards for us here. That being said, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they just shift the Weidman and Anders fight to our televised prelims.
Yeah, that's a possibility too. That's something that John said. But yeah, you never know how they mix it around. Like we were talking about, it's global, right? So who's going to attract more eyes on the things that are going to pay the most? Right?
100%.
So that's definitely.
Well, you saw his eyes light up when we talked about Ian Machado, Garry, and Shavkat Rakhmonov in that fight, and I think that
Some people are saying that could have been the main event.
Yeah, it's just an incredible fight, and I had mentioned to Ian Machado, Garry, when I was chatting with him a couple days ago, that I think that the one advantage that he has in this fight that you could really point to as maybe his clearest advantage is his fight IQ. Like, you look at the way that both those guys fought Jeff Neal. Very clean performance from Ian Machado Garry, whereas Shavkat really got into the trenches with Jeff Neal. He had that great finishing, that standing rear naked choke, which was incredible.
It's commendable how he finished him too, but he like Ian was saying, he took so much damage. And if Ian can run up the scorecard on him and get him to fight more desperate over time, there might be an even bigger hole for Ian to take advantage of. Yeah. So I'm really interested to see what the tactics are going to be, because he can't just come in there and grab Ian Machado Garry and submit him. Right? He's got to still have to go through some barrage of strikes.
Yeah, 100%. And both guys undefeated. The main event, we've got Kai Asakura moving down from bantamweight to the flyweight division. And yeah, we talked to John about that as well. And I mentioned the TJ Dillashaw situation, but I think it is a little bit different. You know, when I asked Kai Asakura the other day about, you know, is this going to be hard for you to make weight? He kind of went like this, like, He knew that he had this in terms of making the weight. I don't think they would have given him this opportunity if they hadn't already brought him kind of to the UFC Apex, run some tests on him to see, like Charles Jourdain, who moved down to bantamweight. He said that when he came to the PI and they checked his levels and stuff, and they said, you're a really small featherweight, and you probably should be fighting at bantamweight. Like, that's your natural weight class. And he learned that from doing these kind of tests. And I imagine with Kai Asakura, that's probably what happened with him. They brought him here, ran tests, told him how he should diet, and now he's got this incredible once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come from another promotion. I don't think we're going to see stuff like this a lot in the future, where you're going to see people get immediate title shots.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. They probably did that with him, but being able to make the weight and to perform the way you perform at 135 is not the same thing. Like, yeah, okay, he can make the weight physically, but is he going to fight the same at 125 as he fights at 135? I brought it up because Robert Whittaker too used to fight at 170, and he did way better at 185. And I have another teammate of mine, used to train with us before, is Tom Breeze. Tom Breeze too. He did much better at a heavier weight class than the lighter weight class. Just because you can make the weight doesn't mean you're going to do your best, right? So it's kind of, some of these guys are in between two weights, and they don't really belong in the lighter one, and some of them, they don't really belong in the heavier one. So they do well, but then they never really reach the top. And some guys, I should have just been heavier. So it's interesting to see.
I think about that all the time. About like if there was a 165 pound or 175 pound division, like who would have been the guy, right? Like because there are people that I think, I think a lot of fighters are kind of tweeners, and even at the heavier weight classes where there's such a big range, you have guys like if there was a 225 pound division, like Stipe probably could have been one of like the probably already one of the all-time greats, but like at 225 he might have been even better than he was at heavyweight.
It's possible,
right? So you think about these kind of fighters that are kind of in between. Kai Asakura might fit that mold because I think Pantoja is a natural flyweight. Like you look at he's like this height, right? Like he should be fighting at flyweight, whereas Asakura is a taller guy. He's taller than you and I. He's I think 5'10", 5'11". So yeah, he's a pretty big guy for the division.
That tall.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if his performances are going to be the same. And like talking about being dynamic, okay, because he is dynamic, right? He throws a lot of powerful strikes. And to be a powerful striker, you have to be somewhat dynamic. And when you cut that extra 10 pounds, can you be as dynamic as you always been at 35 in rounds 4 and 5, or are you going to be only dynamic for round 1 and 2? You know, are his physical attributes going to deteriorate in the fight compared to when he fights at 135? That's the question mark for me.
You're also dealing with guys who are a lot faster, right? Like if you're relying on power and precision, and you're fighting guys that are smaller and harder to catch, that could be a big issue too.
Yeah, Pantoja's not the hardest to catch. He eats a lot of them and just walks through them a lot of the time. So.
Who, for Pantoja?
Pantoja, yeah.
Well,
he walks through a lot.
You know, for Pantoja, I think like the path of least resistance for him is probably taking Kai Asakura down. But that said, when you're entering, you've got to be aware of those knees.
He's got beautiful flying knees, and that's what I'm talking about. Like maybe those flying knees are going to be super dangerous in the first few minutes, maybe up into the halfway point of round 2. But is there going to be a point where he can no longer be that dynamic, and then the takedowns just start raining in, and the ground control just keeps adding up and compounds over time for Pantoja? That's where we have to watch. That's why you got to buy the pay-per-view on Sportsnet.
And I think in MMA, guys that have great knees and elbows are the most dangerous fighters because you can't really drill that. Like if you're at TriStar and they're like, well, I'm fighting a guy that throws a lot of knees, I'm going to try taking you down 10 times. I want you to throw precision knees at me. You just can't do it. You can't simulate that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because even with the knee pads on, you'll break someone's nose. You know, the knee pads really only protect us from the cuts more than the impact of the power. So you'll still break guys' nose. So even when you're fighting a guy who does a lot of knees, you can't really throw knees for real. You're always faking them. And when you're faking them, they're at like a third of the speed or a quarter of the speed. So it's not really ideal in terms of practice. So you can never really practice for it 100%. And a lot of times, especially if the guy's good at kneeing to the body, you might break your partner's rib if you knee him for real. So you have to take so much off it. It's never really the same. Right?
Yeah, and it's so difficult to train those kind of things. And I mean, there are just a lot of weapons that fighters don't use in training because you don't want to hurt your training partners, right? Like, I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Another one that comes to mind is the spinning back fist. I remember one time Rory was preparing for a fight, and one of our teammates during sparring threw a spinning back fist on him. And even though he didn't throw it very hard, he got the distance wrong. So instead of hitting him with his glove, he hit Rory with his forearm. And when he hit him with his forearm, he hit him with like the sharp bone of it, and it cut him. Cut him right before the fight, and Rory had to pull out of the fight. So it's kind of like those things where even if you are careful, you don't know what's going to happen because the bones around the elbow and stuff is going to hurt.
Charles Oliveira, same thing happened to him. Like he was training. I think it was the Islam Makhachev fight, and he got cut and had to pull out of the fight because these things can happen in training, just like fluke accidents.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, Mirab got cut and posted it on social media,
that wasn't
and
that
still
smart.
fought Sean O'Malley.
That wasn't that smart. He won
He's
the
a
title.
wild man.
I guess
Mirab.
it works.
Mirab is a wild man.
Speaking of Mirab, why don't we look ahead to next month? UFC 311. They just announced the main and co-main event there. You've got Islam Makhachev against Arman Tsarukyan, an unbelievable rematch.
That fight I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then they announced Merab Dvalishvili against Umar Nurmagomedov, a fight that I don't think people were anticipating because there had been rumors that Umar was going to fight in Tampa against Song Yadong. That fight never came together. There was talk about Merab being asked to fight in March, which is during Ramadan, where Umar doesn't compete. But apparently Merab Dvalishvili walks into Dana White's office and says, I'm tired of being disrespected by Umar Nurmagomedov. Make the fight.
Is that the story?
That's the story. That's what Dana White said on his social media.
You know, even for me, like it was getting awkward. I was even me when I was fighting on November 2nd, like the people are asking me, what do you think about Merab avoiding Umar?
He was never avoiding him.
I don't think he was ever avoiding him. Like if you ever I've only met him briefly a couple of times, Merab, you know, and it doesn't seem like the type of guy to be afraid of anybody. You know, he just wants to fight. He's so happy to be doing this job, and he doesn't have that mindset where he's trying to run and hide from anybody.
Yeah.
You know, so I found it kind of weird, and neither does Umar. You know, I don't think Umar is afraid of anybody either. Not saying that either one of them is afraid of the other, but I'm just saying, like, you know, you got to wait these things out. And sometimes the fans, they just put an image on a fighter that he doesn't deserve.
Now, I will say a lot of people have avoided fighting Umar Nurmagomedov, but I think that the point that Merab was trying to make is, like, look at all these killers that I had to run through before I finally got a title
He went through
shot.
a gauntlet, man.
He won 9-10 in a row against tough guys. You look at Umar's fight, he says, well, he's got the win over Sandhagen, but then who?
Yeah.
So he's saying, like, compare these resumes of these other fighters, and he says, you know, Piotr Jan, he just beat Figueiredo.
Yeah.
I thought
that was a great fight, though, man.
Fight.
Listen, that was a great performance by Piotr Jan.
So Merab said, hey, maybe Piotr Jan should be next. Like, I don't think Merab's trying to disrespect Umar or anything like that. I think he's saying, well, look at all these guys that I had to face, and now you want me to fight this guy who hasn't fought that many top-level guys.
Yeah, and, you know, stylistically, it's going to be interesting because Umar might be a guy who Merab can't take down. And we know Merab is going to keep trying. When he fought Aldo, he just kept going down that well, right? He was just keep going. But what I like about this matchup is going to be interesting to see Umar's kicks, how effective they can be, given that this guy is going to wrestle him.
Right.
You know, because usually guys who kick a lot, they get out wrestled. They're able to get, people are able to catch their kicks or to smother them enough where they can't really kick that well, and then they shoot and take them down. You know, we've seen it happen to Yair Rodriguez, who's also a really good kicker. But Umar has the wrestling to back it up. So I'm excited to see, can he throw the kicks, or is Merab going to get around it?
And people see the name Nurmagomedov, and they always think wrestling. Umar is more of a striking-based fighter. Saeed Nurmagomedov, more of a striking-based fighter.
Yep.
A lot of people don't realize that just because they share a last name and they share, you know, lineage in Dagestan doesn't mean that they're all training in the same. Like, they have a system in Russia called Master of Sport.
Yes.
You can become a Master of Sport in
boxing,
sambo, combat sambo, boxing, exactly, wrestling. Like Piotr Jan, I believe, is a Master of Sport in boxing, right? Like, so a lot of these guys, people will see the name Nurmagomedov and think that they're chain wrestlers or that they're Khabib, but they all have different skill sets. Even Usman Nurmagomedov, who fights in the PFL in Bellator. He's more of a striking-based fighter as well. Like, so I think a lot of people have this kind of misnomer where they don't realize Umar's striking is probably a level above what Khabib's was.
Yeah, and you know, Khabib didn't have the prettiest striking. And I remember one time I said Khabib has power in his punches, and people were like, no, he has no power. But the thing is, who dropped who in the McGregor fight?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
He has power, but he just doesn't put his weight into it all the time. He's not always, because he's not the cleanest striker. He's not setting it up. What he's really doing is he's striking to get to his goal of wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? And even, I think a couple of times he said in interviews, he doesn't really want to hurt guys with his striking. He wants to control them. He wants to beat them and not necessarily destroy them, like, physically, right? So it's interesting. I don't know, like, does he hold his power back or whatever? But with this fight with Merab and Umar, I want to see also, is Umar going to take down Merab? That would be great to see, too. Like, it would be interesting to see if he even tries. I know he's more of a striking base, but maybe there's a situation that arises where he can counter and get on his back. You know, I would love to see somebody try to out-grapple him, too. I know... the former champ at flyweight just tried it. Triple C.
Cejudo.
Cejudo was just trying to take down him, but he gassed out, and Merab never got tired, which is an interesting fight. So I'm waiting to see how that's going to go.
And even Piotr Jan is an excellent wrestler.
Yeah.
You look at him against Merab Dvalishvili. Merab, I think, was 49 takedown attempts or something like that.
That's
some crazy number.
That's incredible.
Yeah. To be able to do that over the course of 5 rounds is just it's otherworldly, right? And I think that he's really going to be trying to take that sort of approach against Umar and test his wrestling. I'm very interested to see how that goes. You also have Yuri Prochazka against Jamal Hill.
I'm really interested in
that fight. Yeah, we saw that interesting clip yesterday.
Jamal trying to call out Pereira.
Jamal tried to call out Pereira, and Pereira just threw boxing gloves at him and said, "Let's go."
Yeah, why
and
not?
he's like, well, we're not doing this. We need to do this for money. And I don't think Alex cared. He was just like. Alex doesn't need to know how to speak English to let him know exactly what's on his mind in that moment. He just threw the boxing gloves at him.
I found it funny. They said, we're going to do this for free, but it's like, well, why are you getting in our face?
Yeah, exactly. Then why are you
shake my hand, say hi, and walk away? Why are you starting?
Because you saw when he approached Alex Pereira, Alex went to go shake his hand. It looks like we're heading to the scale for a second attempt for Anthony Lionheart-Smith, who missed weight at 207.5 pounds the first time around. He is making a second attempt here for his fight against Dominic the Devastator Reyes, which headlines our televised prelims on Sportsnet 360 and Sportsnet Plus.
There you go. He's got his sunglasses on. I think he feels cool. He made it.
You think so? You think the sunglasses are
a tell that he's confident.
Do they have the Riz Pharma box going? There it is. No, I guess he's
keeping his underwear on. He made
no. Yeah. Let's see. See how it plays out. Either that, or he just wasn't able to cut anything.
Yeah,
He's going to
exactly.
be 207. Here we go. Cut the tension with a knife here, folks. 205 and a half.
He made it, baby.
He cut a full 2 pounds.
Congratulations.
Good for Anthony Lionheart-Smith. Shows his strong resolve.
So we're talking about the mindset. I don't think his mind is broken. Maybe he's just timing was off or
yeah, who
scale
knows?
was
But
off.
he was
Who
able
knows,
to cut those 2 pounds, and I think that's incredible. Well, that does it for our weigh-ins here at UFC 310, the official weigh-ins at the UFC Apex. The ceremonial weigh-ins you can catch a little bit later on today. We've got a lot of interviews that we're going to be doing with athletes from UFC 311 next month, UFC 310. So make sure you check out sportsnet.ca and Sportsnet Plus for all of that great content. I want to thank our camera operator, Vern, doing a great job behind the sticks, our producer, Dan, making things work here on the floor at the UFC Apex. Thank you,
and Curtis on the switchboard.
Curtis on the switchboard. Can't forget Curtis and his brother Chris. We'll shout him out as well. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to the official weigh-in show for UFC 310 here on Sportsnet Plus and sportsnet.ca. And we look forward to doing this again next time around. We will see you at the ceremonial weigh-ins later on today.